High in the sky going 600 miles per hour. What can go wrong?
Hello, valued customers, Captain speaking. We'd like to apologize for the delay. We got word that one of our passengers is smuggling Schedule 1 narcotics on the plane, and we have informed the local authorities who should be escorting the man out right about now.
Alright then, scumbag. Empty your bag right now. I can smell the narcotics on you.
Officer, why? I don't have any narcotics on me. I just ate a legal hemp gun.
Oh shit, he's got a gun! That was a close one. But don't worry, folks. The situation has been handled. We'll get a crew to body bag this son of a bitch. Oh, sure, you also dropped your bag of flour. Anyway, carry on. Highway to the danger zone.
Well, turns out quite a few things, but over the clouds, there lies a rainbow so beautiful, it might just be worth it. Because, as we all know, flying friggin' sucks, because unless you have an online university making you $1 million a day, you're gonna have to get used to paying Michelin star restaurant prices for tap water and the most disgusting food you'll ever taste in your life. And I promise you, bro, I'm not over-exaggerating. The last flight of our US trip from JFK to London, me and RizX decided to pop a New York Lego Brick Blue Rats Eddie just before we got to the airport, so we were faded both at the airport and the first half of our flight. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. This was my first ever time flying high, and yes, this might be a shocker for some of you guys.
CBDBro isn't smoking that Qui-Gon Jinn Vietnamese Phillips head runs 24/7? Unsubscribed!
And although that might be true, just know, this shit ain't nothing to me, man. I smoke real Amani Cuban Rapscallion Ghost Nuggets. I'm him. I've been him. I will continue to be him. Just got my DNA test back. Turns out I'm 100% Himalayan. So basically, I never saw a need nor really had the opportunity to be faded on an airplane. Mostly because 90% of my flights have been 2 hours or shorter, and 2 hours of sitting on the Boeing GTS bucket seat ain't that bad. Well, if you're flying Frontier, it'll probably be like 5 hours because the fucking delays there. Anyway, as we woke up in the morning in Flushing, New York in a $250 per day shitbox of a hotel at the end of our trip, completely exhausted and a bit depressed from having to go back home from our grand US adventure, we looked at our only 25% consumed $30 bag of Eddies and thought, man, this is all really gonna go to waste. Unless we... I'm gonna stop you right now. We're not risking jail time for 15 bucks worth of Eddies. Man, nah, you're right. But, what if we just ate it all before the flight? After Googling and Redditing for 20 minutes, we were pretty confident that being high on an airplane isn't a big deal as long as you don't take any za with you. So we ordered our Uber to JFK and now we were on our way to the airport, discussing how much should we take. And although I at first thought of taking the whole bag was 500 mg, so $250 per, which my tongues was at the point where 50 effed me up. So we decided on 100 to avoid. Would you like some snacks or any drinks, sir?
No, thank you.
Can I offer you any snacks or any drinks, sir?
I'll have, M&M's.
We arrived at the airport and ate our Eddies just before going in. It took us about 10 minutes to get to the security line, which had us a bit paranoid because the line was pretty long, and for our calculations, the Eddies should be kicking in about 20 to 30 minutes. Thankfully, we were able to unload our bags before they hit, and RizX was the first one through with no problems. He got his bag and was waiting for me on the other side when...
You're good to go, sir. Enjoy your flight.
Next.
Are all your pockets empty, sir?
Yes,
Walk on through then, sir. Yeah.
The Eddies had shown themselves just before I went through the body scan, but thankfully I got through that just fine. The problem was, unlike RizX whose bags were cleared instantly, mine were not. They were sent to the manual inspection, which I knew for a fact I had nothing to hide, but because I was slowly but surely descending into madness, all I could think about while I was sitting there with the other people whose bag needed to be checked was, how long is this gonna take?
Shit, I hope I don't have anything. No, I know I don't. Do I?
Yes!
What?
I was bugging out. Not because I was smuggling anything, but because I was slowly but surely getting higher and higher, and was starting to question if I had accidentally left some weed in my bag, maybe, I don't know. Thankfully, after about 20 minutes, I got my bags, and we were able to leave security. Finally. And I thought that the hard part was over, but it was just beginning. Let me introduce you to the worst food place I have ever experienced in my 21 years of life on planet Earth. Let's call this establishment Trust Burger. Even though my expectations for airport food are extremely low, and I mean massively so, the experience there literally opened my eyes to how shit a food place can actually be. I arrived there 1 hour before boarding, and from the first glance, I knew what I was dealing dealing with was truly a Michelin star worthy establishment. There were 4 workers there, each with a designated task, and each one of them was really pouring their heart into it. The first worker was at the counter, and she was really well trained because she was working there in a completely new way. Instead of taking orders and answering customer questions, she positioned herself near the back of the counter close to the kitchen, obviously to provide the best service possible somehow. Oh, but the kitchen workers were even more professional. They were so good at their jobs that although there was 4 of them, only one of them was working. And I'm assuming the others were there for quality control. Now, normal folks like myself and you would think that having a line of people waiting for their food with angry faces would make these guys rush. But no, what we were dealing with were truly smooth operators. Even in the face of controversy, with all eyes on these 5 workers, however much the customers tried to get it out of them, they refused to muster up even one singular thought. And obviously being that the person who was supposed to be taking orders was doing something else, mostly chit-chatting with other workers, everybody including me had to order from the self-service machine. And so I did. After ordering, I went to buy some Ruffles and M&Ms, and because I was bugging off the Cuban rapscallion ghost nuggets and had lost my sense of time, I went up to the counter to ask if my order was ready. Yeah, hello? Yeah, hello. Sorry, I'm just checking if my order is ready. I went away for a minute, so, just checking. I don't know.
Okay, well, do you know where I can find this out?
It's only been 5 minutes, man.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
I walked away from there high as balls and shamed. Shamed for asking if my order was ready. Now, at this point, I was basically starving to death. But how these guys had treated me, I was really scared of them spitting or even worse, jizzing on my burger. But after 20 minutes, I did get my order. And if you thought the service was bad, the burger itself was even worse. The thing was cold and dry as fush. It was so bad I literally had to consume the thing like a competitive eater. Every bite had to be hydrated with a sip of water, so the jizz burger would even slide down my throat. After eating it, I was also really paranoid of getting food poisoning. Not because the burger tasted bad, well it did, it tasted like dog shit, but it didn't taste like anything had gone bad in there. Just because I was obliterated and my brain was prepping for the worst case scenario. But now, it was time to find jizz in your Riz-X and go to our gate. And that took about 10 minutes, and after that we started walking there together when we heard the speakers call out, Mr. Bro and Mr. Riz, this is your last call for flight 69420. I repeat, Mr. Bro and Mr. Riz, this is your last call for flight 69420. Please come to gate 69 immediately. Thank you.
Run.
Thankfully, we got to our gate and made it on the plane. And turns out there was plenty of freaking time because we still sat and waited for 30 minutes before the plane took off. Which that might have also been the reason why the guys at the gate looked at us like a bunch of baboons. Looking back at it, it must have set off some alarms seeing 2 6'5" behemoths running at full speed holding their carry-ons on top of their heads like they were running from a lion, but hey, at least we made it. But once the adrenaline wore off, I realized 100 mg was truly too much. I was fighting demons on that aerodynamic plane, and what made it worse was the flight attendants were all super posh and uptight. We were sat at the extra legroom middle aisle, and I swear it wasn't just a za. These motherfuckers were looking at us, judging our every move. Anyway, after sitting in silence and looking down at the floor for 30 minutes, we finally took off, and because it was an international flight, it was a massive plane. And as it was taking off, it made a lot of creaking and sketchy noises, which increased my tweak meter to almost maximum. I mean, it doesn't make sense physics-wise. How the fuck are those massive wings supported with just a connection to the body of the plane? Things were flopping like crazy, and however much I tried, I couldn't get the vision out of my mind that as soon as the pilot starts pulling up, one of those wings would detach and we would fly into the highway in front of the airport in a ball of fire causing the next 9/11.
But we survived. What a surprise. I guess it was just a week.
I did end up sleeping for 4 hours of our 10-hour flight, which was great. I'll leave it up to you though if you think it was worth it, as all the stress and anxiety did pay off very nicely as I watched Vikings and ate M&Ms for the rest of the flight with a smile on my face. We proceeded to touch down in London at 6 a.m. and slept for 4 hours at a McDonald's before catching our last flight home. Dabs, the world's strongest saw, or so I have been told. In reality, dabs can't really be considered the world's strongest saw because it's technically not weed anymore, it's the extract of it. And although there are natural and unnatural ways to extract that THC, the end result is always the same: super potent, sticky, icky wax. You see, wax is like the express lane of cannabis. If the express lane was designed to launch you into a high so intense you'll wonder if you just got teleported. It's a concentrated form of cannabis where all the THC and terpenes have been extracted from the plant into a sticky wax-like substance. Think of it as the espresso shot of weed. It's quick, potent, and designed to get you where you're going fast. Wax generally contains anywhere from 60 to 90% THC. That's right, you're basically inhaling a THC rocket launcher. A little dab, literally a small dot of wax, is enough to send you to the moon and back in no time, which, let's be honest, might be exactly what you're looking for, but anyway. The extraction process typically involves solvents like butane or CO2, which separate the THC from the plant material. The result is a gooey concentrate that can resemble something between honey and a gummy bear's worst nightmare. And if you think it looks a little sus, that's because it probably should. Just make sure you know what you're doing with the dab rig, or you might end up with an accidental science experiment that doesn't go quite as planned. Now, you might be wondering, CBD bro, what's the difference between like strong bud and dabs, eh? What's up with that? Glad you asked, my little munchkin. Bud typically contains around 15 to 25% THC, depending on the strain and how good your dealer is. This means it's still potent, but you won't be crossing into a parallel universe with a single puff. You get a slower, more gradual high that builds up over time, kind of like gently being rocked into a nice little nap. Unlike wax, which is concentrated and intense, Bud is the slower burner of the weed world. Sure, you'll still get high, but it's more of a let's hang out and take our time with this situation. Like sipping on a glass of wine versus chugging a bottle of tequila. You'll get the same effect, but one will probably leave you with fewer regrets. To put it simply, wax is like the hardcore version of cannabis, while bud is like the I'm just here to enjoy myself version. Both will get you high, but one will probably make you rethink your life just a little bit. So what made me want to try dabs in the first place? Well, you see, as the modern day Columbus, I like to view myself as a discoverer, and having tried every type of grass besides wax, it kind of bugged me that I didn't have any knowledge of the latter. And so, for science, my own personal curiosity, and educational purposes, I decided to test it out so I can stand here and tell you not to try it. Here is my experience with the dabs. Let me set the scene for you. I have been in Florida smoking up every day on that not CBD Zaza legal nationwide, baby. Don't get high off your own supply, they say. But since the supply was in a warehouse, I thought it didn't apply. Problem was, with 24/7 online access to premium bud, I got my tolerance up to levels I honestly didn't think was possible for me. But Florida is not the place this story takes place. It was just a prologue. After building up a Dracula castle-sized fort of tolerance in my body for 2 months, I flew my badonkadonk to Denver, Colorado, where ZA is legal on the state level. And I don't know if I just got lucky 3 times in a row or Denver has more dispensaries than grocery stores, but for some reason every hotel I stayed at had a right outside the door, like it was part of their compound or some shit. Anyway, once I arrived in my first hotel, I had no real plans of going to Dabbington City. In fact, I assumed because Colorado is like the capital of ZA, I could achieve the fate I was chasing by just buying some premium bud. But alas, turns out the not CBD grass I had been puffing prior was on the same level as the stuff in the dispensaries, and due to the insane tolerance I had built up, it wasn't really getting me where I was trying to go. However, because I had bought a whole ounce thinking it would be more potent, I was kinda stuck smoking a shitload of it for a while. It wasn't until I went to my next hotel when I finally ran out and was in the market for some exotic again. But this time I knew flour wasn't going to be enough. If I was going to end my multi-month US trip with a bang, I needed something that would face my insane tolerance and overcome it. Push me back into Yodi land one last time. So I went to this and explained my situation to the clerk.
Hello, sir. What can I get for you today?
Yeah, so I'm looking for something strong.
Well, in that case, I guess I recommend edibles, maybe some moon rock or dabs. What do you like?
I've never done dabs before, but I have heard that they're very potent, so I guess I'll go with them.
Fabulous choice, sir. I have 3 types here. The cheap stuff, the good stuff, and the insane stuff.
It was at this moment that I sealed my fate. My overconfidence consumed me, and I answered,
Give me that insane shit, bruh.
92% THC is the wax I received, and to all you f***ing ZA experts who are already typing,
THC percentage doesn't mean anything. Has this guy ever even smoked before? LOL. I live in my basement alone, and all I smoke is that exotic.
nah, for real, bro. Last video, some dude said what matters most is the plant's DNA and its heritage. Like your average smoker is gonna walk into this on some,
Excuse me, could you tell me about the DNA compensation of this ZA? Yeah, I don't know, bro. It says OG. Of course I see that, but tell me about the history of this particular plant. Were its ancestors also original gangster?
Look, man, I get $14 an hour here. I don't freaking know. I've smoked it before. It's pretty good. Anyway, now that I got my premium dabs, I needed a way to smoke it. But because I knew doing dabs is not as easy as just, say, ripping a BONG, I decided to do a bit of research before buying any equipment. So I went to the closest Starbucks, sat down, and...
This is what you're gonna need. A cap, a nail, terp spinner, which is optional, a rig, Q-tips, a torch, a timer, dab tool, and a set of plugs.
Well, that's ridiculous.
I knew it wasn't simple, but what the fuck is the main thought that went through my brain. I had no idea you needed a whole damn chemistry kit to take a dab, but I had already committed. I mean, that premium wax wasn't cheap, and I was determined to finish what I had started. So I went to the closest smoke shop like,
Hello there, can I help you with anything?
yeah, so, I need a cap, a nail, a spinner, a rig, Q-tips, alcohol, a torch, a timer, and finally, a dab tool. Do you have all of that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can find all that stuff around here somewhere, but you could just buy this electronic pen. Probably be a bit easier.
Oh, well, sure, but does it include, a cap, a nail, a terp?
No, but like, you can do a dab with it. Oh, fantastic. I'll take.
As it turns out, all you really need to take a dab is a e-pen, but I'm sure I'll be lecturing in the comments about how that's not the same and how I've never even been high before. Anyway, I was now almost ready to enter into Dabbington City, but it was not gonna be easy as I was staying at a no-smoke hotel. So I grabbed all my stuff, walked like 10 feet from the hotel, loaded my dab, and...
Oh. It's not on.
So I put it on the high setting, waited a couple seconds, and prepared to smack it again. I was done. Finished, bamboozled. No words can describe how absolutely grade A I was. I knew from the moment I exhaled that I needed to get to my room as fast as possible because this high instantly reminded me of when I first blinkered a Benjamin, only even more intense. I felt like my eyes had caved into my brain, making me more third person than first. Also, I could detect every organ in my body individually, and the sound of my heartbeats were constantly playing like some background music. I don't even know if I finished the whole dab, but I just knew I had to skedaddle before I...
Wait, is it a bit cold? No. No.
You see, I have this weird, awful debuff I only get sometimes when I'm like really high. And this is the misperception of being extremely cold. It's like this weird trigger I have when I get too faded, and because I've experienced it so many times, it's like this unholy, intrusive thought that I just can't avoid. You can imagine my situation was not ideal. I was tweaking harder than I probably ever have before, and I just started slowly walking back to my hotel, trying to think of anything besides my bodily functions. I made it back inside, still shivering from my mental debuff, and walked to the elevator as fast as I could, where I had an awkward encounter with a fellow guest.
I'm a swerve in the corner.
Is it really that cold outside?
No, it's pretty warm actually.
Oh. Okay. That dude must have thought he just talked to a local crackhead. But anyway, the instant I got back to my room, I snuggled into my bed to warm up and hopefully stop tweaking, which eventually I did, but I was still scared to leave the comfort on my warm sheets, so I just kind of watched fun YouTube videos until I came down a bit. After about 30 minutes, I stopped geeking and instantly ordered some food, but not just any food. I ordered a large Baconator combo from Wendy's like a true American. And I know I say this every high story, but this time I can't emphasize it enough. That shit was bussin'. Combine my already empty stomach with the wax high, then throw in bacon, cheese, and lettuce. Yeah, I added lettuce to my burger. Why? Because fitness isn't a choice, it's a lifestyle. So, sorry to disappoint you guys, but really that's about all that happened. The high was very similar to my first Benjamin. Tweak it first, vibe later. Will I be doing dabs again? Probably not, because they're pretty expensive and build up your tolerance super fast. Did I enjoy my time in Dabbington City? Well, besides the first 30 minutes where my brain got Doctor Stranged into Antarctica, it was fun, although it did make me very stupid. As I remember trying to connect my PS5 to my TV, and for like 15 minutes, I was trying to figure out why it wasn't showing up on my screen until I realized,
Oh, I'm missing the HDMI cable, dumbass.
substance addiction is a very scary thing. Well, it depends. A dude who's addicted to ashwagandha ain't gonna be on the same level of desperation as a motherfucking crackhead, but nevertheless, both them dudes still addicted. Only difference is one is willing to lie, rob, manipulate, and destroy all his relationships just to get one more smack of that sweet, sweet crack. Anyway, since this seems to be a trendy topic right now, we are going to be ranking every substance from S to F based on many factors like addictiveness, how hard it is to quit, how much it affects your life negatively, etc. With F being the hardest to quit and most harmful for you, and S being just a mild addiction. And all of this will of course be presented to you in a family-friendly, comedic, entertaining, and scientific way. So YouTube, please, I'm just a funny stick man. So let's start it off with what your boy might be addicted to just a teeny tiny bit, and that's of course weed. Some people might say you can't get addicted to weed, and to those I say, bro, you dumb as shit. Okay, not to be mean, but that statement is just false, because as humans, we can get addicted to anything and everything. Even shit like a cool breeze on a hot summer's day could get you addicted, because that shit feels nice, bruh. What I'm trying to say is that even though getting physically addicted to the Zaza is quite hard, getting mentally addicted is easier than watching a 10-minute YouTube video. Well, if you're Gen Alpha, this doesn't apply to you with your skibbity toilets and stuff, but you get what I mean. It's all about habit and relieving stress, and even if you smoke up once a day at the end of your day when you got all your shit done and it's time to relax, you still mentally addicted by equating relaxation with smoking the Lord's loud. But overall, if I'm being a $125.5 with you, this isn't too bad, because when you're at this level, you won't start tweaking if you don't have any weed. You just prefer it if you did. But if you do smoke up 24/7, it's a bit different, because your body will start relying on the za to get you through your day. Although honestly, it's kind of hard to get to that point, because if you're anything like me, after a day or two of smoking weed and doing nothing productive, your mind will tell you, oh boy, time to get faded and play V-Rising all day again. Bro, what the fuck is you doing? You really finna wake and bake again? You're broke, and you look like a damn bum. Man, I swear, you wake and bake today too, and I'ma start giving you mad anxiety, bruh. Oh, okay, fine. I'll be a functioning human today. Total busk. So all in all, weed gets a B rating because of its mostly non-addictive nature and relative ease in which it is to quit for most people. Very much unlike fentanyl. Not much to say here. Smoke once, you dead, bro. Don't have to worry about quitting, cause, well, you're dead. Oh, but if you do survive, your brain has now been chemically altered forever, so now all you want is the stuff. So if not instantly, you're dead in a week or two tops. Although I think some people have managed to quit, they'll probably just never be the same again. So complete F tier. Nah, actually fucking Z tier. Don't even think about it, bro. Crack. Now, before I researched into fentanyl, I thought this was like the pinnacle of addiction. I guess not, cause I saw this clip of some dude talking about how veteran crackheads who have been alive for decades and still smoking that shit be dead instantly after taking a sniff of fentanyl. But even so, crack is F tier, cause just like fentanyl, it alters the chemistry of your brain, and now the pursuit of happiness turns into the pursuit of crack. Again, don't even think about it, bruh. Now let's tune back from the hardcore stuff in hopes that this video is still staying monetized, which seems more like a fantasy right now, but anyway. Caffeine, the wonder drug, a widely accepted and extensively researched substance that works by stimulating your body and increasing the activity in your brain and nervous system. Just drink too much of it and it'll have the exact opposite effect, leaving you super anxious and unable to work properly. Also, it is somewhat addictive, although quite controllable, but if you do drink the same amount of coffee or shotgun a Red Bull every day, pretty soon you'll discover that the Red Bull isn't really getting you going anymore. So now you need another, so you either get another, or you realize that this is a slippery slope and not drink that Red Bull for a day or two and your tolerance goes back to normal. I found the best way to manage your caffeine addiction is to only consume it when you feel like you're gonna need needed for the day. What I mean by that is if you, let's say, work from Monday to Friday, then drink a coffee or two those days, but refrain from consuming caffeine on the weekends. That should give your mind and body enough time to reset your dependency without it even being that hard. There's also a bunch of research showing that 1 or 2 cups of coffee are actually good for you and can lower the likelihood of type 2 diabetes, heart disease, liver and endometrial cancers, Parkinson's disease, and depression. So, yeah bro, I mean, with the other shit on this list, I think it would be silly for me not to throw it at S tier. But do keep in mind, moderation is always key to what you consume, how you plan your time, how you live your life, everything bruh. But coffee, S tier, moving. Nicotine. Nicotine is like caffeine's evil brother, cause just like caffeine, nicotine can increase your focus and help you get through your day. Only problem is, unlike caffeine, which I'd say for most people can be a controlled addiction, vaping usually isn't. In fact, a big portion of people who consume this stuff do it to the point of it having the exact opposite effect, making you dizzy and less energized. And just like caffeine, you build up a tolerance pretty fast, making your sin bombs less bomby with each stuffing. The worst part of Nick though is always gonna be the fact that most dudes are inhaling aerosol in their lungs to get it in their system, which from that you will experience gross side effects pretty fast, like phlegm in your throat 24/7, loss of lung capacity, and pretty soon anxiety when you can't suck on your vape for a prolonged period of time. But the actual worst part about vaping is that it's fucking lame as shit. And even though in high school it might have made you cool, in the real world being addicted to flavored cancer-infused mists really shows a lot about your character.
Character? What does that even mean?
It means that if you're like really addicted to the point of vaping every day all the time with no plans on quitting, it indicates that you're a mentally weak person, because at that point you sound like a ghoul from Fallout, run out of breath from walking up a flight of stairs, and you're constantly spitting shit from your mouth, aka you've turned into a gremlin, aka you're gonna be treated like a gremlin by people who aren't gremlins. If this is only something I've noticed, then so be it, but if I'm gonna keep it a $1.50 with you, every single person I know who is heavily addicted to nicotine is not a very productive / successful person. But hey, that might just be me and my personal experience. So make sure to comment down below if you've noticed something similar or I'm just talking out my ass. We're gonna throw nicotine at E tier just cause, well, crack is on F tier and, well, it's not that bad. Now though, moving on to a more psychedelic world. Mushrooms. I'm not talking about culinary mushrooms or even the ones Mario uses to grow bigger. I'm talking about the mushroom Luigi collects and saves at the beginning levels for when after the game is over to get on Rainbow Road, if you know what I'm saying. Psychedelics overall are not super addictive though, cause if you've ever been on a trip from these things, you know that shit is exhausting as shit. I mean for real, after my heroic journey, I felt like my brain had gone through a month's worth of thoughts in one 5-hour session, leaving me completely mentally drained. But that doesn't mean mushrooms aren't addictive at all, because although not physically addictive, just like weed, mushrooms can be mentally addictive, cause when you're tripping, you feel like you're in this secret dimension of being, which gives you a sense of belonging and makes you feel special. And that feeling can be addictive, especially if you're not very happy with your current situation in your normal life. They can be used as an escape, kinda like Alice in Wonderland, but unlike more natural escapes like TV shows, video games, and movies, mushrooms leave your brain drained and confused. That's also the reason why if you go to a smart shop in Amsterdam, they always tell you to take at least a 4 to 5 day break in between mushroom trips. Firstly, because of the aforementioned mentally draining effect they have, but also because your body builds up a tolerance extremely fast to psilocybin, the chemical found in magic mushrooms. And if you bang multiple trips in a row, the effect will be much lighter, but also because of that, it'll feel less draining and therefore make it possible to take this stuff daily. And if you do, you can get a bit disassociated from your normal existence and therefore build up a bit of an addiction to mushroom land. All that being said, magic mushrooms are one of the only substances on this list that have been proven to have therapeutic uses, like for example fighting your other addictions. I know from my personal experience when I banked a heroic dose, it made me think a lot about how much I consume things like weed and nicotine, and from that I was able to cut both those things down a bit, especially the nicotine. I also know of people microdosing this stuff and having positive effects, but me personally, I don't really believe that, because if you're taking them every day, you'll eventually start relying on them, and that kind of defeats the whole point of tripping once and carrying what you learn into your normal life, I think. Anyway, all in all, mushrooms gotta be B tier, because when you do get addicted to them, it can drastically mess up your life. It's just kinda hard to get to that point. Drugs. Something America has been fighting against for over a century, yet this endeavor hasn't been very fruitful. Basically, imagine the ocean as all the drugs in the US, and they have thousands of people with buckets slowly emptying it out. But the problem is, on the other side of the ocean, there's dudes like Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria who have direct pipelines feeding in endless amounts of pure Colombian cocaína. But you know, Pablo was the GOAT narco. Surely after defeating the Medellin cartel, things would get... Oh, well, fuck. Basically, because the US is by far the biggest market in the world, there will always be tons of entrepreneurs, mostly South American, who want to invest. And because starting a tech company with only 100 pesos and a 2-cylinder motorbike is pretty hard, why not settle for the next best thing? Drugs. From the opium crisis of the late 19th century to the current fentanyl one, we are going to look at every drug epidemic in US history and hopefully by the end of it, learn why the fuck does this keep happening. So let's start it off with the first one. The opium epidemic of the late 19th century. Welcome to the late 1800s, where opium is basically America's favorite snack. Got a headache? Opium. Can't sleep? Opium. You're feeling a little bit down? Yup, opium. Doctors were out here handing them out like strip club invites on the Las Vegas Strip, especially in the form of laudanum, a fancy mix of opium and alcohol.
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now my whole team fucking here.
Hey, yo, doc, you think I could get a quick refill on that prescription laudanum? You know, that good shit.
Sorry, John, we're all out. But here, take this Jack Daniels and powdered opium. Just smack a hit from the pipe and wash it down with the Jack, if you know what I mean. That should get you back on track. Rehab.
Oh geez, thanks, doc. Now excuse me as I go get fucked up on my medicine and partake in my favorite 19th century pastime, beating my wife.
Godspeed, John.
But then the Chinese immigrants arrived, working hard and bringing along the practice of smoking opium in dens. These dens were kind of like the Starbucks of the day, except instead of coffee, they served up a bowl of relaxing opium. Naturally, this made some folks nervous, cause nothing says panic like a little cultural exchange mixed with drugs. Then came the moral outrage, which wasn't just about the opium, but also had a hefty dose of racism. Suddenly people decided opium was bad news, especially when it involved Chinese immigrants. So San Francisco passed a law in 1875 targeting these opium dens, effectively saying no more public opium fun for anybody. By 1914, the US government got serious with the Harrison Narcotics Tax Act, making it way harder to get opium without a lot of paperwork. And just like that, the first US drug epidemic started to fade, leaving behind a legacy of questionable drug policies and a whole lot of finger pointing. So what did we learn, or rather should have learned? Well, maybe that it's a bad idea to get the entire country hooked on a substance before figuring out how addictive it is, and that blaming everything on immigrants never really solves the problem, but alas, this lesson was forgotten pretty fast. Now let's jump to the second multi-drug epidemic, which was the heroin, speed, and barbiturates crisis of the mid-20th century. Did you know heroin wasn't always the notorious bad guy we know today? In fact, it started as a miracle drug that was supposed to cure people of their morphine addictions, which I think you're probably starting to see a bit of a pattern here with the US being overly confident in their medical knowledge and getting people hooked on hardcore drugs.
Tom, what are you doing with that morphine?
Oh, well, I've had this headache since the morning.
Well, good luck with that. Morphine is like super addictive, bro.
What's that?
Oh, this is just heroin. It's like way better than morphine, like way better.
Heroin is in fact better than morphine, specifically 2 to 3 times strong. Better. Anyway, doctors back then really did think they'd hit the jackpot. Got a cough? Here's heroin the hero. Feeling a little down? Heroin's got your back. But instead of curing addictions, it just traded one addiction for another, stronger one. And people got hooked faster than you can say Chains FR clone. Fast forward to the 1960s and 70s, and heroin was like that super obnoxious drunk guy who refused to leave the function. It spread like wildfire, especially in cities. You had everyone from jazz musicians to war veterans getting tangled up in heroin's sticky web. It was cheap, it was potent, and it was everywhere. And then came the crime. As you might guess, a bunch of people addicted to opioids isn't exactly a recipe for peace and harmony. Crime rates soared and cities became battlegrounds, with heroin at the center of it all. The government's solution? A big shiny war on drugs, which mostly involved cracking down on users and dealers with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Instead of helping addicts, they threw them in jail, which was about as effective as smoking indica to boost productivity. Around the same time, there were actually 2 other drugs that were causing havoc as well: barbiturates and amphetamine, aka speed. On one hand, you had amphetamines, or you might know it by its street name, speed. No, not that speed. That speed, yeah. But why was it called speed? Well, cause one dose of these Chaos Emeralds could get you tweaking around like Sonic. These little fuckers were like rocket fuel. Feeling tired? Pop an amphetamine. Need to lose weight? Amphetamines to the rescue. Trying to stay awake for 3 days straight to grind the new Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and become an omni-movement god before anyone else? Yup, you guessed it, amphetamines. But after all that speeding around, people needed to come down, and that's where barbiturates came in. These were the downers that help you sleep, relax, or just stop vibrating like a jackhammer. Doctors handed out like candy, thinking they were the perfect solution for everything from anxiety to insomnia. The result? A whole lot of people bouncing between being wide awake and dead asleep, often with a little too much of both. People started getting seriously hooked on this cocktail of uppers and downers, and it turns out when you mix the two, it's a recipe for disaster, like trying to drive with one foot on the gas and the other on the brake. Overdoses skyrocketed, and suddenly, the party didn't seem so fun anymore. It was shortly after Marilyn Monroe and Judy Garland died from a barbiturate overdose, the government finally decided to step in, cracking down on these pills and making them harder to get. And just like that, America had to find other ways to stay awake or chill out. But now we are arriving to the more well-known controversial epidemics, first of which is the famous crack cocaine epidemic 1980s to 1990s. Crack was like cocaine's cheaper, faster little brother. It was easy to make, easy to get, and way too easy to get hooked on. Think of it as the fast food of drugs. Cheap, quick, and leaving you with serious regrets. Crack hit poor urban neighborhoods the hardest, spreading like crazy. Suddenly, everyone and their mama could afford to get high, and before you knew it, communities were being torn apart by addiction and crime. The government's solution? War on drugs, Infinity War. Okay, that's not what they called it, but I mean, it was technically a sequel to the original War on Drugs. But unlike the Avengers who went after the big bad guy behind the chaos, it mostly involved locking up minorities, even if they were caught with even a teeny bit of crack. It was like a cruel game of gotcha, where basically everyone lost. Crack is also one of those drugs that if you do it once, it changes the biochemistry of your brain. The euphoria you feel from smoking that shit goes way beyond what the brain can produce itself. So once you get that feeling, your brain will start equating true happiness with smoking crack. That's why even people who are able to quit will most likely never be the same again. If you ask Dave Chappelle, the whole thing was a tragic, darkly ironic mess. He pointed out that when crack hit black communities, the government's response was all about punishment, not help. Fast forward a couple of decades, and when opioids started affecting white communities, suddenly everyone's talking about treatment and compassion. As Chappelle famously joked, it's funny how the tune changes depending on who's affected. The crack epidemic wasn't just a drug crisis, it was a stark lesson on how race and class can influence government response. And while crack might have faded from the headlines, the impact of those years is still being felt today. But before we can get to the current opioid and fentanyl epidemic, we have to quickly skim over the drug best known from a bald cancer patient with a chemistry degree. The meth epidemic, 1990s to present. If you thought Red Bull gives you wings, meth gives you freaking rocket boosters. It's cheap, it's easy to make, and it turns you into a jittery paranoid tweaker real fast. Meth, like everything else in this video, spread like wildfire, especially in rural areas where it became the go-to solution for anyone needing to stay up for days or just looking for a fun time. Before long, meth mouth and tweakers became common sights, and communities were left dealing with the fallout. The government's response cracked down on the ingredients. Suddenly, buying cold medicine felt like trying to smuggle pure Colombian. But despite the regulations, meth didn't go away, it just got sneakier. Hello? Hello, Doc. Yeah, funny story. Basically, everyone in my community, family, and all my friends and shit, you know, they got a nasty cold, so, you know, I'm gonna need, like, all your cold medicine, like every last bit, bruh. Sorry, you don't look very sick to me. Trust me, doctor. I'm a sick man. Now give me your fucking cold medicine or I'm gonna burn this freaking place down. Around the same time, there was also the prescription opioid epidemic, but the story there is basically the exact same as the opium one. Only difference being that this time it wasn't technically the government's fault, it was big pharmaceutical companies who convinced doctors that opioids had no side effects and could be prescribed out like Tic Tacs. Spoiler alert, these were some of the most addictive drugs in the universe, and comparable to Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet, but you know, only like 1 or 2 stones. Now though, we're gonna talk about what happens when opioid Thanos gets all 6 Infinity Stones. The fentanyl epidemic, 2010s to present. Now we're in the 2010s, and if the prescription opioid epidemic was Infinity War, then fentanyl is Endgame. Fentanyl is super potent, like 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine. A tiny amount can knock you out, and by knock you out, I mean send you to the gulag where you either clutch it it, or it's game over, bruh. The scary part? Fentanyl is showing up everywhere, often mixed with other drugs like heroin or even cocaine, usually without the user's knowledge. Suddenly, what might have been a manageable, if still bad habit, has become a deadly gamble. One wrong hit, and you're dead. The government has scrambled to respond, focusing on harm reduction, distributing naloxone, an overdose reversal drug, and setting up safe spaces for users. But fentanyl keeps spreading, turning every drug purchase into a potentially fatal decision. The practice of meeting a stranger at the club and bonding over some pure Colombian is really dying out, man. All jokes aside, if the devil is real, then fentanyl is 100% his doing. Out of all the legit hardcore drugs talked about in this video, this makes them seem like some indigo weed. Whoever sells fentanyl knowingly should be judged not as a drug dealer, but as a murderer with intent to kill. I'm grasping at straws here, but the only good thing that might come out of this is awareness about the dangers of drugs. And although teenagers are stupid, I'd hope that this crisis might push away would-be first-time drug users, as the chance of literally dying from doing anything is so likely these days, you might as well be playing Russian roulette. And now you have the full overview of American drug epidemics. What did we learn? Well, we might have learned a lot, and I don't know about the government though. Hopefully, I guess. Every type of cannabis explained, from weakest to strongest. We'll be looking at everything from the near oregano, low-grade flower that you probably smoked in high school to the most insane, near 100% THC concentrates that are sold at the top shelves of Cali dispensaries. Additionally, with the help of science and medical studies, we'll be categorizing each type of cannabis in the spectrum of entertainment, medical, creativity, and just plain old unhealthy. The objective of this video is to educate the public about the positives and negatives of weed in an entertaining way, but to do that, it is essential we discover how extremely varying different types of marijuana can be and why generalizing it as weed is good or weed is bad is just plain impossible. So without further ado, let's get into the weakest type of za there is, and that is low percentage THC flower and or CBD dominant strains. Okay, so I went into this video presuming you already know what THC and CBD is, but in case you don't, let's quickly summarize. THC is the chemical compound found in cannabis that makes you
When did Family Guy become so funny?
aka the munchies, laughter, feelings of euphoria, and overall its psychoactive effects come from THC. And CBD is the compound that reduces anxiety and can potentially help against depression, although the latter isn't as conclusive. There's also two distinct types of cannabis unrelated to its THC percentage, called sativa and indica, with sativa providing more of an energetic mind high and indica leaning towards a relaxing body high. So when we are talking about low percentage THC flower, aka 1 to 6% THC with a high concentration of CBD, we are in the realms of medical marijuana, meaning this type of weed, besides pure CBD of course, is the least intoxicating and can be potentially helpful to people with varying mental health issues. Just always keep in mind, smoking anything is harmful for our lungs, and even though this type of cannabis can be considered medical, it really depends on the person, their psyche, and what issues they are experiencing. So now we know low percentage THC flower links to the medical side, but what about entertainment and creativity? Well, although this type of cannabis won't have you staring at your wall for 30 minutes plotting your trip to the kitchen, it can, however, still give you a different perspective on things. Unrealistic feelings of euphoria and cartoonish thoughts probably won't occur, but that doesn't mean your creativity won't be affected at all. You might not come up with the next Rick and Morty while under the influence of this gas, but you could come up with creative solutions to pre-existing problems or give you a slightly different perspective on what you're doing. Coupled with the high concentration of CBD, which could help you feel more at ease and reduce possible anxiety that might have been attached to you before, this type of weed is best for beginners or people who could be trying to reduce their weed dependency without going straight up cold turkey. And that's why it lands itself in the far end of the medical spectrum, but not so much in the creativity and entertainment part of the fucking thing. Anyway, moving on, mid-grade THC flower, the mid-shelf gas. I won't go over this too long as it's quite similar to the previous one, but with slight differences. Mid-grade flower usually ranges between 10 to 20% THC with varying levels of CBD, which general rule of thumb is for medical use, go with the highest CBD percentage, and if you just want to get faded with your friends and play split screen Minecraft, get the one with the highest THC. Just make sure it still has some CBD in it so you don't, well, green the fuck out. Why I say that is because contrary to popular belief, CBD and THC do not bind to the same receptors in our brains, but through various studies and my own personal experience, CBD in most cases can reduce the adverse effects caused by THC, aka freaking out, feelings of discomfort, spikes in anxiety, etc. That's why even if you're an experienced stoner, it's good to have some CBD oil or flower that can help you if you're getting those unwanted side effects from some high percentage THC cannabis. So this type of weed lends itself higher in creativity and entertainment, but a bit lower in terms of its medical benefits. Moving on, high percentage THC flower, aka premium bud. This is the point where we start leaning much further away from the medical side into the entertainment and creativity side. High-end flower usually ranges between 20 to 35% THC, and unfortunately most of this top shelf flower is engineered to have very little or sometimes nearly zero CBD, which is why I said that this is the point where we really start deviating away from the term medical cannabis.
But you might be asking, why can't I just get my flower with both high CBD and THC, you stupid
Well, let me explain. Cannabis plants can naturally express high levels of either THC or CBD, but rarely both. This is because THC and CBD are derived from the same precursor, CBGA. The plant's genetics determine which enzyme, THC synthase or CBD synthase, is more active. In high THC strains, the THC synthase enzyme dominates, converting most CBGA into THC, leaving little room for CBD production. To add to it, cannabis growers have traditionally bred plants to maximize THC levels because of its psychoactive effects, which are highly sought after in recreational markets. Over time, this selective breeding reduced the expression of CBD in high THC strains, as the two cannabinoids tend to work in an inverse relationship. So it's also unfortunately us, the consumers' fault that super high THC and low CBD percentage is the baseline for top shelf gas these days. With brands constantly trying to compete with each other and providing the most mind-boggling high possible, there isn't really a lot of demand for high percentage CBD flower that still gets you very high. People buying weed for recreational use usually only care about the get you very high part. But I'm not saying that there is absolutely no place for this type of weed in the medical world, but it is extremely situational. The same way as inviting a friend out to have a couple drinks and watch the game on a Saturday night to alleviate the stress and anxiety from a hard week of work, this high THC flower can be a fun night to blow off steam and take your mind off real world problems for a while because, well, this shit could have you so obliterated you'll be using 100% of your brain power on figuring out how to tie your shoe, bruh. AKA, this is imagination land. I'm kinda going off personal experience on this, but the artists and musicians I know seem to enjoy this type of cannabis the most, as it can completely block off the real world and enter you into this trance state where you are 100% focused on whatever you are doing.
But CBD, doesn't that mean it helps with ADHD and anxiety?
In the moment it can, unless, well, you couldn't handle it and are instead rolled up in a ball on your couch focusing on defeating your demons. Anyway, multiple medical studies have shown that high concentration THC flower does not help against anxiety, depression, and ADHD at all. What it does instead is give you an escape from your ADHD, depression, or anxiety for a brief moment whilst under the influence, and even that doesn't come without a cost. As if you smoke too much of this high THC flower, or really any weed, you'll build up a dependency and in return feel even more distracted, have more anxiety, and increased levels of depression whilst not under the influence. AKA, if your friend claims to be smoking that top shelf Zaza for anything else than a fun time, he's either lying to you, himself, or he's just been smoking up for so long he doesn't even remember what it was like to be sober in the first place. So through everything we talked about, I'll have to place this type of cannabis right on the border of unhealthy and medical, with a very high level of creativity and entertainment. But now let's talk about our first non-farm to table cannabis, and that is hash, aka traditional concentrate. Hash, short for hashish, is one of the oldest cannabis concentrates made by collecting and compressing the trichomes, resin glands, of the cannabis plant. These trichomes contain the plant's cannabinoids and terpenes, making hash potent and flavorful. The potency varies heavily depending on the plant that was used to make it, but in general they can range anywhere between 20 to 60% THC. The biggest difference that me and other smokers I've talked to have noticed is that the high from hash, although quite strong, is usually shorter. And because this stuff is concentrated, 1 gram of hash will almost always get you higher than 1 gram of flower. The good thing about hash is, although it is concentrated cannabis, it is still natural. Traditional methods of making hash do not use any chemicals or solvents. Instead, they rely on mechanical processes like rubbing, sifting, or using ice water to extract the resin. Because of the wide variety of potency, it's quite hard to place this on our spectrum, but I'm going to put it just a bit closer to the medical side than the high potency flower, and a bit less to the creative side due to its shorter duration, which can make entering that trance state I talked about a bit hard.
Other concentrates, 60 to 95% THC. Besides hash, there's like 10 different ways to get THC concentrate from the Zaza, some of which don't use solvents and some that do. If I were to go over every single one individually, this video would probably be like 30 minutes. And since there isn't really a huge difference in potency between them, I'll quickly summarize. Rosin, made by applying heat and pressure to cannabis flower, key for hash to extract resin. Live rosin,
rosin, a solventless concentrate made from fresh frozen cannabis that's first turned into bubble hash and then pressed into rosin. Shatter or wax, extracted using butane or propane and then purged to remove residual solvents. Live resin, extracted from flash frozen cannabis using butane or propane, then purged. Diamonds, THC crystals. THC is crystallized using hydrocarbons and solvent-based processes. THC distillate, cannabinoids are extracted using solvents, aka ethanol or CO2, and then refined through distillation. Phew! And those are the most popular concentrates, which the most flavorful are usually live resin or rosin, as these retain the most terpenes. And the strongest concentrates are usually diamonds or THC distillate. But the reality is, unless you're like a super stoner, you probably won't be able to tell much of a difference between all of them, as every single concentrate is bound to get you absolutely bamboozled, unless you know, of course, you have an insane tolerance. The main takeaway from concentrated THC is that it builds up your Zaza tolerance very fast compared to regular bud because of its high potency and usually shorter duration, making you smoke up more often. Which is why I will be placing them closer to the unhealthy side, but also the entertainment side due to the mind-boggling high it gives. But now onto the strongest type of smokable weed there is, in my opinion, and that is infused flower, aka Moonrock or Sunrock, 50 to 80% THC. You might be asking yourself why infused flower is ranked higher than concentrates when the THC percentage is actually lower. Well, take it from me, as someone who has done both dabs, aka concentrate, and infused flower, the small difference in THC percentage really doesn't matter in this case. The reason for that is, unlike dabs or the Benjamin, which on average has a shorter duration than bud, infused flower gives you the insane kick of concentrate whilst also providing the longer effect of normal bud, which in my eyes makes this the most potent smokable weed on planet Earth. But feel free to have a war in the comments about it. I'll be reading every single one like always. Placement on the spectrum will almost be the same as concentrate, but because you won't be smoking up as frequently and in return damaging your lungs a bit less, I'll put it just a bit closer to the medical side, but still definitely unhealthy. Now for the last type of Zaza that is in a league of its own, and that is of course edibles. Infinite THC percentage. Why I rank Eddies as the strongest type of weed is quite simple. In the act of cooking cannabis, it turns into something different, something otherworldly, something psychedelic. If you watch some of my other videos, you'd know that I view super potent edibles as something entirely different than normal weed. I'd even go as far and compare them to mushrooms. And science has my back on this because when you digest THC in your liver, it turns into something far more potent, and return when you go to the cinema and watch Oppenheimer, you'll probably be overwhelmed and geeked the fuck out. Watch the video on the screen and you'll know exactly what I mean. Oh, and because you're not damaging your lungs in controlled doses, I'd say this is by far the healthiest way to consume cannabis, so far in medical, far in entertainment, but not so much creative because you'll most likely be immobilized.
Since the dawn of humanity, us Homo sapiens and previously Neanderthals have always been different from the rest of the pack, where zebras, deers, and other pussy-ass animals accepted the pre-installed food chain. We humans decided,
Man, screw this shit! These mammoths always walking around like they own the place. I'm tired of being a beta. Let's go get a bunch of spears and kill these fat motherfuckers for food.
The only problem with having self-awareness and as of 2024 being the smartest creatures in the universe is that with a cruel twist of fate, being so intelligent has also made us the saddest and most mentally unstable creatures as well. Unfortunately, being so sharp, we have over the years, through the power of chemistry and science, invented or tried to invent happiness in capsules, syringes, powders, or anything else we could come up with. So today, we are going to go over humanity's worst creations in the field and dive deep into horrifying drugs you should never ever try, starting with crocodile, aka desomorphine. Crocodile, also known by its chemical name desomorphine, is a synthetic opioid that is notorious for the horrifying physical effects it can have on users. Originally developed in Russia as a cheaper alternative to heroin, crocodile is typically made by combining codeine with toxic chemicals like lighter fluid, paint thinner, gasoline, hydrochloric acid, and even red phosphorus from matchstick heads. The nickname crocodile comes from the scaly greenish skin that forms where the drug is injected. Yup, you heard right. Your skin literally starts looking like a crocodile's because this stuff is so toxic it causes the tissue to rot. We're talking about skin peeling, scales forming, and bones becoming visible through flesh. Ew. You'll be looking like Green Goblin, bruh. Except for like, super strength and a cool glider, you'll just have a life-destroying addiction to a DUI opioid. Fair deal. Desomorphine itself is a powerful opioid, synthesized from morphine and more potent than heroin in terms of its pain-relieving effects. Crocodile doesn't just mess with your brain, it goes straight for the body. After shooting up, you get a brief heroin-like high, but the aftermath? The drug stops blood flow to your skin, which then dies and falls off. So if smelling like expired meat and looking like a jockey from Left 4 Dead sounds fun, Crocodile is perfect for you. Although Crocodile's high is similar to heroin, it's a much shorter kick, with effects usually lasting only about 90 minutes to 2 hours. This leads to a frequent need to inject, with each rep making you more goblin-y. And with how addictive this stuff is, a full transformation is usually weeks or even days away. Once injected, the toxic additives in Crocodile begin to cause serious vascular damage, cutting off blood supply to tissues. This leads to necrosis, aka tissue death, often within days of regular use. Users commonly experience infections, abscesses, and gangrene at the infection sites. The skin around the sites may rot and decay, exposing bone and tissue. Some users even require amputations because of severe infections, which after hearing all this, you might understand why some people call it unhealthy heroin.
Who's that guy?
Oh, that's Tom. Yeah, he's into all types of messed up drugs.
Damn, hate to say it.
Yeah, don't talk to him. He's definitely a bad influence. Let's move on and talk about a drug that is extremely dangerous, but in a much different way, and that is scopolamine, aka Devil's Breath. If a drug could win a supervillain award, scopolamine would sweep the category. Imagine something that could turn you into the world's politest zombie, calmly handing over your wallet and life savings to complete strangers, and then thanking them on your way out. That's Devil's Breath in a nutshell. Scopolamine is classified as an anticholinergic drug, meaning it blocks acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter involved in memory, learning, and muscle control. This disruption in neurotransmission can cause hallucinations, amnesia, confusion, and loss of free will. Even in small doses, scopolamine can impair cognitive function, making users susceptible to suggestion, which is why it's sometimes exploited by criminals. High doses can lead to extreme sedation, paralysis, and unconsciousness. Basically, although not as physically harmful as Crocodile, Devil's Breath literally makes you into a remote control zombie. In some parts of South America, particularly in Colombia, scopolamine is infamous for its use in crimes. Criminals blow powdered Devil's Breath into the faces of unsuspecting individuals or add it to their drinks, rendering them compliant and susceptible to suggestion. Victims often experience antegrade amnesia, meaning they cannot form new memories. They may follow commands, give away personal belongings, reveal their bank information, or even assist in robbery while in this zombie-like state with no memory or little memory of the events afterward. Hello?
Where am I? What?
Yo, Jack Dorothy's stream, fam. Here, sit down and watch this for 6 hours.
Wouldn't it be, like, more productive for you to have me rob a bank or give you my bank details or anything else?
Nope.
Well,
fuck. It's not all super bad though. I mean, in modern medicine, scopolamine is still used in very controlled doses to treat motion sickness, nausea, irritable bowel syndrome, and to alleviate symptoms of Parkinson's disease. At therapeutic doses, scopolamine is relatively safe under medical supervision, but its effects increase dramatically with higher doses, leading to severe mental and physical side effects. All in all, if you have plans of becoming a supervillain anytime soon, this might just be the thing to get you going. Now though, moving on to the next substance, and that is Flocka, aka synthetic bath salts, aka alpha PvP. Flocka is basically the result of someone saying, you know what, bath salts aren't intense enough, bruh. It's a synthetic stimulant, and while the high might start as a short burst of energy, it quickly turns into an episode of The Walking Dead. Only this time the zombie is arguing with a mailbox cause it looked at him funny. So how does it work? Well, imagine you're suddenly the star of an action movie where you're invincible and can outsmart everyone. Except in reality, you're flailing around the street wearing one shoe and debating philosophy with a stop sign. Flocka disrupts the brain's dopamine system, so while you feel invincible, you're actually just terrifying every passerby.
Where are the Fruit Loops, you slime? You told me you'd give me my Fruit Loops today.
Excuse me, sir? Are you okay?
What? Of course I'm not okay, my fellow Space Ranger. This intergalactic death slime won't give me my goddamn Fruit Loops back. You got any dark matter on ya? I'm stumped without it, brah.
come to Florida. It'll be great there, Shada.
Flocka users often experience what's called excited delirium. In normal people language, that's overheating while trying to lift a car. The combo of a sky-high body temperature, Hulk-level aggression, and an indestructible sense of purpose is basically a recipe for disaster. Flocka has also been known to cause kidney failure and severe paranoia. So not only do you think the trash can is plotting against you, but now you need a whole new kidney, man. The worst part is, people tend to get hooked on Flocka faster than you can say,
Maybe this was a bad idea?
it messes with the brain's reward system, so once the high fades, users often want more. And that's how you end up asking a lamppost for directions to the nearest dimensional portal. Flocka is not here for a fun time, neither a long time. If you value your dignity and don't want to star in a viral video titled Local Man Fights Tree, Loses, it's best to keep this one off your list. Now though, for the last substance that is very well known and extremely deadly, something I've already talked about on this channel, but this one is an ongoing epidemic and destroying lives as we speak, so I feel like I have to mention it here as well. Fentanyl, aka death. Okay, so no one calls fent death, but they should, because this drug is known for killing people like flies. It might not be as extravagant as the other substances in this video, but that does not mean it doesn't belong here. Fentanyl is an ongoing crisis in the US, meaning unlike Crocodile or Flocka, which are niche drugs, by the time you finish watching this video, there'll be at least one person who OD'd on fent. Fentanyl is slipped into everything from coke, molly, other opioids, and yes, even weed. As Dio Vaughn said to Vice President-elect JD Vance,
I don't know if I'd be sober if this stuff weren't killing people, to be honest with you.
which might have not been super appropriate to say, but you know, he's kind of right. There is no escape from fentanyl. You do it once and you're hooked for life, which means a couple days to a week or two max. Cause if you're lucky enough to escape fent your first time, it'll get you so addicted, you'll most likely start considering selling your body on the streets to get more of this stuff. And then, well, OD and die. Hopefully, by the new appointed leaders of the free world, this awful pandemic could finally start declining, but until that day arrives, doing anything besides store-bought stuff is truly a deadly gamble. So in conclusion, maybe just stick to grass? January 1st, 2014, there is a line of people in front of a store in Denver, Colorado. Time goes by and they finally open, which then a man walks in and buys the first ever legal recreational bag of weed in the US and gets absolutely obliterated. And I'm pretty sure no one expected this event to bring forth one of the fastest growing industries in the United States. From being known as the murder drug in India to going to your local dispensary and buying a $80 bag of banana strawberry pudding flavored weed, this is the story of how the ZA went from illegal to a projected $100 billion industry by 2028. And it all started in the early 1900s. The initial regulation of cannabis in the United States came with the enactment of the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act. There is a widespread belief that the decision to outlaw cannabis was driven by racial motivations, for you see, during the early 1900s, a growing influx of Mexican immigrants into the US prompted a shift in media discourse towards portraying the ganja as a dangerous substance, leading to the implementation of stricter drug and cannabis laws. Media reports even went as far as labeling marijuana as the murder drug. Yeah, bro, not meth and not coke. Weed was the murder drug.
What are you doing, bro? Smoking that murder drug.
Oh, I didn't know it was that bad.
Yeah, man, it makes you violent and literally go insane.
Oh, damn, I'll put it away. Thanks for warning me. Nah, you good. Just don't do it again. What's that? This? Don't worry, this is just crack. Also, during this time, newspapers frequently circulated assertions linking marijuana use to mental illness, promiscuity, and violent behavior. These claims significantly deterred recreational marijuana use among the majority of Americans, despite the substance not being widely recognized at the time. Which, my favorite of the bunch is definitely violent behavior. I just can't deny that every time I smoke a doozy at the end of my day, I get this sudden rage, and I just start fucking going apeshit. That's probably also a big reason why Bob Marley was such a war activist and always propagating rage and hatred. Disclaimer, that was all sarcasm. Anyway, later on, John Ehrlichman, or whatever the fuck his name is, a senior advisor to Nixon, was quoted as saying, well, the quote is pretty long and boring, so I'll just summarize it. Pause the video if you want to see the full version. Did we know we were finessing the public about weed?
See, of course, dog.
But you gotta understand, bro. We did it for America. we got the public to associate hippies with weed and blacks with heroin. Then we criminalized the shit out of it and went full commando on them. We talking Rambo. We talking death to the chopper. Shit, we went full D-Day on them motherfuckers, man. We hit so many damn licks. Shit was kind of ridiculous.
This quote was kind of the catalyst of the 1970 Controlled Substance Act, which was the consolidation of over 200 previous drug laws into a single statute governing the production and distribution of specific substances. Under the Controlled Substance Act, drugs were categorized into 5 schedules based on their potential for abuse and medical utility. This streamlined the process of drafting and amending laws to encompass entire groups of drugs rather than addressing each one individually. Schedule 1 drugs, the most rigorously regulated, were classified as having no recognized medical value, so obviously medical marijuana must have been like the lowest schedule, right? Wrong! Despite evidence indicating a lower risk of abuse and clear medical benefits, marijuana was still placed under Schedule 1. Research has demonstrated its effectiveness in treating conditions such as AIDS, cancer, epilepsy, and various other medical ailments. But I guess Congress was still like,
It's not the Lord's loud. It's the devil's lettuce.
Since its initial prohibition, there have been ongoing movements advocating for the legalization of cannabis, which in the 1970s pressure to legalize weed intensified in California. Proposition 19 aimed to legalize the grass and was introduced on the ballot in 1972, but garnered only 33% of the vote, so it failed for now. The push for legalization has primarily focused on 3 distinct products: CBD, medical marijuana, and everybody's favorite, recreational marijuana. So finally in 1996, California became the pioneering state to overturn the prohibition of weed by legalizing medical marijuana, despite conflicting with the federal law, brah. Subsequently, in 2012, Colorado and Washington became the first states to legalize recreational weed use. Oh yeah.
Yo, bro, did you hear? Weed is finally legal.
Really?
Yeah, bro, I just bought this from a store. Shit is wild. So you're telling me if I went down to my underground farm, harvest my 20 or so pounds of weed, then go to the university campus, set up a weed lemonade stand, and sell all of my lemon haze to the students, I'm not a drug dealer and just a businessman?
Nah, I think you can like have a couple grams, and your operation is still, well, not gonna lie, bro. I got a wire, and the FBI should be kicking your door in right about... Which brings us to today, where the ZA is still federally illegal and a Schedule 1 drug, and because of that, there really isn't a lot of research on it. Between 2000 and 2018, $1.56 billion was allocated to cannabis research, with half of this sum dedicated to investigating the potential adverse effects of the drug in recreational use. This disproportionate allocation meant that understanding the harms of weed received 20 times more funding than any other area of research, while only a fraction, less than $5 million, was directed towards enhancing our understanding of its therapeutic application. In 2018, though, the Farm Bill legalized CBD throughout the US, as long as it followed the rules of staying below 0.3% THC, which this Farm Bill turned out to have a shit ton of legal loopholes, making the sale of real weed online completely legal and possible. More on that later. Anyway, because of the lack of research and, well, frankly, awful regulations, we are currently in the wild west of the cannabis industry. You might assume buying weed from a big brand is safer than, let's say, your friendly neighborhood plug, and in some cases it might be, but a lot of times your plug is selling the same shit a dispensary is, just the dispensary is putting it in a fancy bag. Even worse, there's a big issue with sprayed weed, which basically means bud that is artificially flavored in a machine to give the illusion of it being some exotic Havana pack, when in reality it's just a mid sprayed with banana flavor. So you're telling me this eighth costs $100 because it was grown and harvested in Uganda, Africa, right next to the exotic banana farms, and that's why it's banana flavor? Yup. Then why is there a spray bottle right there labeled banana?
Why are you asking so many questions, man? Are you a cop?
What? No.
Guys, get over here. We gotta kill this guy.
But you can't fully blame the growers and dispensaries for this. The problem is the regulations and taxes that are put on these products are so hefty it makes turning a profit really hard. Basically, if your manufacturing cost isn't like at least 10 times less what you're selling it for, you're kinda screwed. There's also a multi-billion-dollar industry that spawned from the 2018 Farm Bill called the derivative industry. And if you don't know what derivatives are, they're basically weed, but sometimes alter chemicals
chemically, like for example HHC, which is just THC but with an extra hydrogen molecule. The most insane derivative is THCA though, which is quite literally just weed, only in its normal state before you heat it, it isn't. It's only after when you light it that shit converts to regular old get you smacked like a penguin THC, which, you know, unless your main method of getting high is sticking the nug up your ass. What I'm saying is, THCA is in every sense just THC when you are using it for the purpose of getting faded, which you probably are. But just because we are currently in the wild west of the weed industry doesn't mean it's gonna be like this forever. More and more countries are legalizing and propelling weed further and further away from the dark shadow it used to be under. Germany is legalizing on April 1st, 2024, Spain has social cannabis clubs, the Netherlands just legalized, Canada legalized, etc. It seems every year that goes by, more and more countries are legalizing. And especially in the US, once they start getting solid tax laws and regulations on the stuff, I think a lot of the problems I mentioned earlier will fix themselves. Honestly, this is very cool, and I do believe you and me will live long enough to one day witness a generation who grow up with weed being looked at the same way as alcohol. The way I see it, as the old generation of politicians and world leaders fades, the stigma surrounding weed will too. You can even see glimpses of it today, as a lot of politicians are using legal weed as a way to get your vote, which, you know, don't let that be your main motivation for voting for someone, but you know, it's a bonus.
Sunrock, the most powerful grass that humanity has ever conjured up, with even its less potent relative Moonrock being so extreme that
Moonrock is too
says
much,
it's
dog.
too much. And since I had once already traveled to the moon and made it back alive, barely, I saw it only fitting for me to conquer the sun as well. But unlike last time, where I was in Amsterdam with my brother and had the comfort of tweaking together, this time I was alone, nearly 6,000 miles away from home, in the city of sin, Las Vegas, Nevada. The story kicks off a couple days after I had hit my first blinker and discovered a new realm of high. You know, kind of like Columbus when he discovered America, but unlike Columbus who annihilated the indigenous people, I was annihilating the Zaza, you know, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, after seeing firsthand what the land of the free can offer in terms of getting obliterated beyond the realms of Mother Nature, I was quite intrigued. So, out of curiosity, I decided to Google strongest weed you can get in Las Vegas, just in case there was something more potent than Moonrock, which up until this point I thought was the pinnacle of bud. So after stumbling upon an article comparing the rocks from the moon and sun, I realized that in my ignorance I had crowned a false king, and the only deserving punishment for a big smarty pants weed stickman YouTuber like myself was to feel the full wrath of the true strongest weed in the universe. I hopped on the local Las Vegas weed dispensary site in hopes of having it delivered to me like the Benjamin, but either due to current weather conditions or just the delivery man greening the fuck out, it said, "We are currently not providing deliveries." But for the time being, I had no other choice than to leave my apartment and go to the closest dispensary in hopes of them having this exotic nug in stock. Only problem was that it was night and, well, your boy wasn't exactly staying at Caesar's Palace, so as I was preparing to go outside in the dark, where, mind you, I saw a guy walking around wearing a safety vest, rocking a handlebar mustache, and carrying a double-barrel shotgun the night before, I just had to take a quick rip from the bong to make it a high story, you know?
Okay, 2 miles that way. Wish I had a car. Guess I'll just run. Fucking bullshit.
A few minutes later.
Hello, sir? Oh yeah, hello. You guys have something called Sunrock? It's like, nope. Just sold the last stock. Those guys bought it. We got Moonrock, though. No, I've already done that. You know where I can get some Sunrocks, though? Yeah, the store a mile from here should have some left. Okay, yeah, thank you.
A few minutes later.
Sorry, I gotta see your passport first, bruh.
No, but this is like my government-issued ID, can you—
Look, I'm sorry. We have a lot of people visiting from banana republics these days, and we can't start selling to everybody with a rinky-dinky, "this is a real country, Google it" ID card. Come back with a passport and I'll hook you up.
I'm not from Banana Republic. We made Skype.
We made Skype.
Hello there.
Yes, I had to now walk back 3 miles, get my passport, walk another 3 to get the Sunrock, and then walk another 3 back home. And mind you, I had already ran 3 miles too. So you know, of course, cause your boy fast as bolt, quick as an electrical jolt, I got an Uber back home. But now I was fresh again, so of course I put on my Space Jams and I got an Uber. But then when I was there and showed my passport, received my $80 weed, I was not trying to get robbed on the walkway filled with homeless camps and Las Vegas fiends, so I got an Uber. Finally, after wasting a week's transportation budget in 40 minutes, I was back in my apartment, Sunrock in hand and rolling papers in my pockets. And yes, unlike last time with the Moonrock, I wasn't about to smack that shit from my bong and get assimilated. Cause from the blinker I had done a couple days back, I learned my lesson about concentrate. Do not underestimate it. So I rolled me up a Slimmy Slimmer, basically a very small J. And something you might not know is that with these caviar nugs like Sunrock, you're not really supposed to grind them with a regular grinder, so I just used my fingers to break the nug apart, and because of that, well, let's just say the airflow on this J was god awful. Later on I would find out you're not supposed to smoke Sunrock from a J at all, but hey, you live and you learn. Anyway, I went to my patio and attempted to light this abomination, and I mean, it really was. Imagine taking some A4 Wagyu steak and serving it in a dirty bucket, but alas, I still... The first puff, yes, the goddamn first puff got me drafted in a galactic war against the Matrix. And I think that had to do with the fact that Jay only had like 3 puffs in it, cause I was basically just smoking straight nugs. But I decided for the legacy of CBD Bro, I shall do another puff. The French Revolution, the Napoleonic Wars, the moon landing, the splitting of the atom, the theory of relativity, it all flashed before my eyes because I now saw the world from an interstellar position. And I would love to say I now went on some grand adventure and discovered the Holy Grail with some Las Vegas crackheads, but this was different. The high was spent glued to my couch, wondering the meaning of the universe and how I had traveled 6,000 miles across the ocean and was now sitting on a couch in some random Airbnb completely and utterly blasted beyond human understanding. After about 15 minutes of doing literally nothing but staring at my wall, I decided to watch some YouTube and found this guy called Oversimplified who makes these historical animation videos and spent a good portion of my high learning about the history of our world. Too bad I don't remember a goddamn thing, but at the time I felt like I was really becoming a damn scholar. I guess the lessons and memories of that high are waiting for me once I return to the land of the sun.
Where am I?
Man, I told you not to smoke that Sunrock. You stuck on the sun now, fool, with the rest of us.
No! Oh, no, wait, that was just a dream. Damn, I'm fucked up.
Yeah, bro. You were in a hell of a kush coma.
Yeah, I guess I was. Wait!
Bro, I got stuck in a kush coma, my dudes. Shit was crazy, and I don't actually remember the exact dreams I saw, but they were pretty trippy, and it was one of those inception things that had me waking up from a dream into another dream, son. Safe to say, I had gotten assimilated. But it was kind of nice, because it was a real clear high without anxiety, which usually when you get that obliterated, it always comes accompanied with just a little bit of anxiety at least. So, are Sunrocks stronger than Moonrocks? Yes, but the main thing I took from this high was that they also kinda better, but I mean, I've only done both once, so once I return to the US, I'll give them both another try and make a conclusion then.
You know, back in the day, if you wanted to get high discreetly, well, sorry bro, but there was no way. I mean, you got the J, which stanks up everything. You got the bong, which although doesn't stank as much, where are you gonna hide it? Imagine trying to sneak by your parents on some... What you doing dropping shit at a time like this, boy? Downstairs, I came down, I wanted a glass of water, yeah. Boy, you must be neurologically disabled if you think that'll excuse you from breaking some dusty-ass dollar store piece and spilling bong water all over my goddamn living room. No, it's... Here, take a smack of this shit.
It'll get you proper, boy.
Well, that sounds like a pretty fun... Anyway, point is, you're not gonna be hiding that shit for long. Only real option you had was the pipe. But bro, at that point, you sacrificing everything you got for one high. Like, I swear, the pipe is the last way anybody in their right mind wants to get faded. Every time I hit it, it's like my lungs and throat revert back to factory settings. Like I ain't never inhaled anything besides O2 before. Basically, by smacking the pipe, you're hurting your lungs and throat to the point it kind of fucks up the first 30 minutes of your high. And that's exactly why when the first Benjamin was invented by the scientists at Yodiland, it changed the game, bruh. Never before could you get obliterated on the go regardless of where you were or what you were doing. And thanks to that, getting high has become so damn easy, you got motherfuckers making obliteration their normal state. Never before could someone do anything even remotely sus and you could just assume they were fucking high. My man had sunglasses on for no reason, faded. Dude was staring somewhere for a bit too long, obliterated. Dude went to White Castle for a culinary experience. Well, that motherfucker's just weird.
Goddamn cafeteria food.
And you can forget about gas stations and fast food places. I mean, at this point, it's like damn near mandatory to be blasted on the job. And I got nothing against that, just since 90% of the time I find myself at 7-Eleven, I'm fried too, and the motherfucker that's supposed to be helping me is trying to scan my items with his damn iPhone. Nah, but for real, the pace that these fried motherfuckers work at is fine when your brain is running at the same low frequency, but if you're in a rush, it'll take damn near every ounce of mental strength you got to stop yourself from forcing a damn self-checkout.
Would you like a bag with that, sir?
Fuck no, here's the money, just give me my shit. But don't get me wrong, I got nothing against a good old Benjamin. There really ain't a better on-the-go, fast and easy way to get faded. Unfortunately, I didn't go to college and kinda cheated my way through high school too, so the 15 or so brain cells I was able to develop that keep me from losing and forgetting shit turned into, well, basically zero. And for that reason, I've already lost 2 of them. One of them slipped out my pocket while I was at the movies, and I'm pretty sure some teenagers stole it, cause after the film, when I was looking for it with my flashlight and shit, these motherfuckers were giggling in the back, looking at me like I was a damn circus clown. Coupled with the fact I was fried as fuck, I was fighting my tears. Dog. I just got robbed by some damn teens and I can't even do shit cause it was illegal to even bring it in there. Second one I lost in a very similar manner. As I was getting out my Uber going back home, my sweatpants did me dirty and flinged that fucker out as I was standing up. Took me 2 minutes to realize, and when I did, my Uber driver was probably already hitting that shit cause when I called him back to ask for it, he said,
Let me check. It seems that you only left me a $1 tip. Sorry, I couldn't find it.
And that one hurt the most because that was the first pen I ever had and the one I used for my first Benjamin adventure, which my first time was, well, by far the highest I have ever been in my life. I'm talking freaky, I'm talking third person. Shit, it was the first time in years I truly greened the thaw out. For you see, normal weed or bud is just that, normal. So the strength of it is confined in the realms of reality, unless you know it, it's moonrock. Anyway, the biggest difference between smacking a pen versus, let's say, a J is that the pen doesn't have normal bud in it. It has concentrate, which, if you're unaware like I was, is about 10 to 20 times stronger than bud. Knowing that, the best way to get faded off the pen is by just taking small rips to avoid getting sent into the goddamn shadow realm. For example, the YouTuber Damien Luck 925 is very well known for taking multiple blinkers, which is the biggest hit you can take, outside in social situations, most notably in random classrooms, like it's nothing. So me being at my USA Airbnb alone in the confines of my living room, thought to myself, okay, so it looks like the basic hit I should do at least is 1 blinker, but probably more. Yet what was waiting for me on the other side of Blinker City was something I was not prepared for. Something unholy. The voices. I'll never forget the horrible things they were whispering. They made me almost delete my YouTube channel. Anyway, it started with me ordering a 1 gram pen off of Weed Amazon, and it arrived the very next day in a beat up Cadillac with a delivery man who, from the looks of it, tests out every product he delivers just, to make sure the quality is there. Yo, bro, you're here for the weed, right? You got the cash? Yeah, I ordered through your website, though. It should be paid for already. Yeah, I forgot I'd take online orders now, too. Anyway, here's the stuff, bro. I trust you. Hey, thanks, bro. Have a good one. You too, man.
Hello, Mr.
bro. We got a delivery for you from Weed Amazon that should be arriving in an hour or so. Will you be home then?
Wait, didn't I just...
I'm a gorilla in a fucking scoop. Gonna pull up to the zoo.
Oh, I better get out of here.
So I went back to the crib, Benjamin in hand, and prepared myself to get faded. And obviously, I went for a blinker my very first hit. But since I had never smacked a pen before, I inhaled it for about 4 seconds and stopped because it was so light on my throat, I thought it wasn't working, but it actually was. And from that 4-second puff, I was already quite bamboozled. But since I have this weird rule of every time I get new stuff, I break it in by doing a massive hit, I thought, well, fuck.
I was supposed to do a blinker.
And went for it again. I inhaled and inhaled for a good 8 to 10 seconds, but the thing just wouldn't fucking blink. It got to the point where there was tears coming from my eyes and my throat was begging me to stop, and it ended up like...
I had made a grave mistake. I was so fucking high, I felt my soul leave my body.
I was so high, I forgot I was even high. But it was just the beginning, because over the next 10 minutes, I just kept on getting more faded, and the demons in my head kept on getting louder and louder. But if you know me, I kind of refused to green out, so I just kept on doing random shit, like reading the ingredients list off my bag of M&Ms, reading the comments on my videos.
Change that dark blue. Do things has changed for real. Imagine helping another YouTuber.
Kill yourself.
Was not doing good. I was keeping a strong facade, but inside there was a war going on.
I was feeling like Naruto with the 9 tails, only instead of an all-powerful destructive force talking to me, I was just really fucking high. Anyway, so yeah, I was grading out, which hadn't happened to me in years, and I concluded that because the voice of reason was completely being outspoken by the voice of tweaking. The good news is though, the hype from the Benjamin doesn't last too long, and in about 1 to 2 hours, I had started coming down, but at that point, I was already crawled up in my bed, scrolling endlessly on my phone, until I finally reached a state where I felt good enough to come out of emergency mode and order some food and ate myself into a food coma. So I learned, well, firstly, that motherfucker Fulcrum is actually insane, or his tolerance is just something else, bro, and that the Benjamin is best enjoyed in puffs of 3 to 5 seconds and not blinkers. Man, smoking too much is such an awkward thing, especially because of how normalized getting faded has become. Nobody wants to be the guy who kills the vibe by admitting they graining the thaw out. Like, dudes be knowing they approaching their limit, but peer pressure is a bitch. Like this one time in school when we were smacking the paper Benjamin on lunch break, and I could tell everybody was nearing the border between Yodiland and the Upside Down, but this motherfucker Salamander just kept on passing the J, and nobody wanted to be the first one to back out. Everyone kept on puffing and puffing until this one motherfucker just started puking. Like, goddamn. Safe to say, dude probably hasn't smoked again till this day. But you know, that was high school. Most kids weren't on that Wiz Khalifa pack like Salamander. I mean, this dude's parents were barely home, so mans must have just been low-key looking for attention by acting out, but instead all he got was Snoop Dogg's tolerance and all the school thotties daily driving his dick. Some of you might not even know what it feels like when you smoke too much though. Shit, I know I didn't. My dumbass always just concluded that the stuff was laced, which looking back at it now makes me feel like a dinglebop for real. I mean, how you gonna smoke way more than you usually do in a situation you're not super comfortable in and then blame it on the weed? It's like a drunk driver suing an alcohol brand for making him unable to drive straight. Shit, it's like going to the store and buying too much food and then blaming the cashier for not stopping you. Like, bro, it's not on Jimmy the Plug God. Dudes is probably smoking the same stuff as we speak. And yeah, I know sometimes it could actually be laced, but what does telling yourself that help? Like, wouldn't it be better to believe it's not and your brain is just tweaking? Then you could maybe, you know, calm yourself down. Unlike when you've convinced yourself the Plug is a fucking supervillain going around giving his customers schizophrenia. Like, goddamn son, someone's gotta like the bat signal for real. But shit, I'm out here preaching like I ain't done this myself. Back when I was younger, I did green out a couple times, but since then, I have developed rules I follow to avoid this at all costs. Like, for example, first rule, you don't always gotta get obliviated, bruh. Seems simple enough, right? But back in the day, every time we were smoking, my dumbass felt like I had to get higher than last time. Once the J reached me, I just...
Thanks, bro. You guys got another one?
Bro. No. There's just some basic etiquette too, like everybody wanna get faded equally, but one thing with smokers is they're usually always chill and peaceful, so when you start hogging a spliff, rarely is somebody gonna forcefully take that shit from you. Just next time when you pull up, they'll bag your ass, pistol whip you, throw you in the trunk, and bury you alive next to Mr. Beast. That video would probably have to be on Rumble though. But point is, you don't always gotta be the highest in the room. Second rule. Accept your limits. This is low-key the most important and the most difficult, but you might be thinking something like, don't you mean know your limits? No, I don't, bro. Cause I bet most y'all know them just when you be watching Fulcrum smacking the Benjamin like that bitch be only containing O2, you get a false understanding on how much mofos be actually smoking. Cause you can always do more, but what you can't do is forcefully remove the THC from your system and get less high. So don't be a victim of peer pressure just cause you wanna be cool, fool. But these rules don't mean shit if you don't factor in where you are and what you're doing. Which leads me to the day that made me come up with these rules. The time in my young life when I smoked so much in the wrong place, I was goddamn obliviated. Shit, I smoked so much I had less dialogue options than an Oblivion NPC. The first time I got high outside the comfort of me or a friend's crib. It was the usual business. We were chilling with the gremlins, me, Salamander, and Ricky, smoking up, talking about how we don't fall with school and how we finna make it out the hood. You know, the usual Gen Z shit. When Salamander, being the thotty magnet he was, got a text from one of his female companions inviting to what this motherfucker claimed to be a chill hangout spot. Although I do trust the homies, knowing Salamander's track record, I was a bit sus, cause I seen the places this dude hangs out at. I'll be waking up at the middle of the night to take a piss, then check the snap only to see dudes partying at some straight up trap house bugging off fucking ketamine. Okay, can't say that on YouTube, but let's just say it wasn't weed. Anyway, you know the drill. I don't wanna go, Salamander uses his 99 speech, convinces Ricky, now it's a 2v1, and I fold. Epic victory royale. But I agreed only under the condition that none of us drink nor do anything else but smoke the Lords loud, because it was a motherfucking Thursday after all, so I wasn't trying to pull up to school smelling like a bum, acting like a depressed middle-aged man from The Hangover. Looking back at it though, that was probably the wrong call, cause, well, you'll see. So we're walking to the crib and Salamander lights up this comically big J that he rolled back at his place with a week's supply. While we're almost finished puffing and on the edge of obliviation, I see this super dope house that seems to be having a party, so I excitedly asked Salamander, "Yo, is that the spot?" Bro, okay, that place does seem pretty dope. Oh yeah, that's the spot. Glad you fought with it. Some people are kinda put off by it from the initial appearance. Anyway, let's just go in. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. You first though. Where are you going? What do you mean? The crib, bro. Leave it to Salamander to have you walk through an amazing street filled with beautiful houses and lead you to the only one that looks like Shrek's vacation home. To add to it, me and Ricky were quite frankly bugging. But as I mentioned in the previous rules, that's not always a good thing, especially when you're preparing to go into a house where your brain has calculated a 50-50 chance of being stabbed in the gut by a freaking tweaker with a kitchen knife. In my head, I was thinking, well, hoping for the saying, don't judge a book by its cover to be the case here. But oh boy, I should have judged the goddamn book by its cover and dashed off like Prime Usain Bolt. Cause what we were dealing with was in every sense of the word except not containing any of the actual substance, I think, a crack house. These people were blasting some of the most disgusting music I've ever heard. Shit sounding like the noise a speaker makes when you fiddle with the aux cord. And because I was high, that set the whole tone of my experience there. And shit, I did not know Salamander hanged out with vampires. Most of the dudes there were looking what you would imagine the local bum to be when he was young. I was in total shock. My teenage brain could not comprehend the degeneracy, the idiocy, the overall lack of humanity in that house. And it's not like I didn't try to have fun, but our highness did not mix with whatever the fuck these guys were on. At some point, I saw him pull out a vodka bottle, and they drank the whole thing in 5 minutes dry, straight from the bottle, like they were trying to speedrun liver failure. I attempted to conversate with some of them, but to no avail. I mean, what did I expect though? A drunk person usually isn't on the same wavelength as a high person, combined with the fact these dudes probably just got done sacrificing a goat to bring forth the Antichrist. I was starting to tweak the fuck out. Well, not tweak, I guess. Me and Ricky did have some fun by just bantering about how messed up of a place we had found ourselves in. All of this didn't seem to affect Salamander though, as we spotted him rizzing up a girl we assumed was the one that invited him, but we were wrong in that assessment because 5 minutes later the girl who actually invited him saw it, went up to him, yelled at him, and then slapped that man so hard it made him rethink his whole damn life. Cause as we were laughing at what had happened, he walked straight towards us and said, "Man,
You guys want to do some ketamine?
Nah, he actually told us that this was probably a bad idea and that he's ready to leave if we are. Good thing too, cause if that girl hadn't slapped some sense into him, Salamander might have gone on to do the thing I mentioned like 3 times in this video. So anyway, we went back home at like 2 AM or something, put on some WWE on the TV, prepared to gleep, and got obliviated. Doesn't go much further than that.
Shout out to Volker.
The first high, a core memory, and whether you enjoyed it or not doesn't really matter, because for 95% of people, their first time literally shapes their entire opinion on the grass. Almost everybody who isn't age 50 or over and says,
weed is the work of the devil and should be more illegal than even meth.
Well, actually it is. The Za is Schedule 1 and meth is Schedule 2, so...
Yeah, that's right. That's why I love America. Greatest damn country in the world.
USA! USA! USA!
Anyway, what I was saying was that most people who tweak their first time are put off by it for a while and shape into Za haters, and people who have fun their first time, believe it or not, don't all become mindless junkies who eat Little Caesars and watch SpongeBob all day. Rather, when asked their opinion on weed, they'll probably just say,
my stomach turned into an endless void with an unquenchable hunger for anything edible, which was followed by a sleepiness so uncontrollable I passed out halfway into my 25th Twinkie. It was pretty fun.
So obviously me, CBDBro, who runs an entire YouTube channel dedicated to the green plant, must have had the latter experience, right? Well, not really. As you see, when I was but a wee lad, uncontaminated by the forbidden fruits of the world like alcohol, nicotine, and yes, weed, always believed that alcohol makes you homeless, nicotine makes you a little bitch, and weed makes you lazy. Thinking that, I didn't want to waste not just my first high, but my very first time feeling anything besides normal on eating Doritos and watching Family Guy. Which, after turning 17, I decided it was about time I lost my substance virginity, and planned to do so on Christmas dinner, where I was gonna let El Marijuana put its big, fat, thick, juicy, delicately rolled J in my mouth, but only after I had eaten, as I believed if my tummy was full, I wouldn't get the munchies, and could instead contemplate the meaning of life my time high. And thankfully, I had an older brother who was more than willing to give me a puff or two from his Christmas dinner J for $4, the fucking cheapskate. So we went upstairs and started puffing, which Rezex was instantly bamboozled from the magic grass. Nice, it's not a dud. Now it's my turn. I grabbed the J and puffed until I could puff no more. And the result was, I didn't feel a damn thing. Still had to pay the $4 though. Fucking bullshit. Anyway, as we went through the day, I got increasingly more jealous of my brother, who by his words was fried AF. I was beginning to think maybe I'm immune to getting high, which after telling my brother this theory, he concluded that I'm stupid and just didn't inhale the Za in my lungs. And so generously told me to follow him upstairs, where he gave me a couple more puffs for an extra $4, the damn venture capitalist. As I was smoking away, keeping in mind to inhale it all the way down to my lungs, I still wasn't feeling anything, and my hopes of getting fried AF were beginning to look more like a distant dream. When I finished puffing, I sat down at the computer to look at some of those watch while high videos, and my brother asked me, "So, you feel anything now?" No, I don't. What's this weird I'm not sure. I don't know, seems to me you're fried like some Kentucky chicken, boy. I was indeed fried, and incredibly so. Although I didn't smoke a ton, my body had never experienced anything besides a sugar rush and maybe a caffeine kick. So as I was watching this watch while you're high video, I was laughing at everything and was tripping the fuck out. But not in a bad way, it was freaking amazing. Being high was what I always imagined it to be until... bloop. I'm sober again. Yeah, you heard right. My first high lasted like 30 seconds, and in an instant, I was back to normal, which I don't know why. Even to this day, when I tell people about this, nobody can relate because no one has experienced this phenomenon. But since I'm a scientist, I have developed a super duper concrete theory backed by quantum mechanics and the late great Stephen Hawking on my experience, and overall the reason why a lot of people who smoke their first time don't feel anything. I theorize that all humans have a natural natural block against foreign substances, a wall per se, and when an individual inhales ZA, the particles act kind of like micromissiles targeting your cannabinoid receptors. For the people whose defensive wall is strong enough, it will stop all perpetrators attempting to infiltrate your brain. But this wall isn't regeneratable, so if the micromissiles fail to get you fried at first, the next time they'll have an easier time against your already damaged wall of defense. Now, I bet you're thinking to yourself,
This mofo been smoking too much of that Einstein pack.
and to you, I say maybe, but also I have practical proof of this theory. I used to be a pro baller, and one day me and a couple hooper friends who all have great immune systems and therefore probably good ZA defensive walls decided to smoke up, and to my buddies, it was their first time. Once we lit the J and passed it around, I made sure to tell everybody to inhale the smoke in their lungs, which I'm pretty sure they all did, but still, I was the only one who got high, cause it wasn't my first time. But when I smoked up with some of my non-athlete first-timer friends, they all got high like normal. So, conclusion, defensive ZA wall is a real thing and I stand by my theory. Anyway, although that was my first time feeling high, I wouldn't call it my first high because it only lasted for half a minute. My first real high experience was something even more memorable and etched to my brain until I die. A couple weeks after the last incident, me and Rizx decided it was about damn time I actually felt the true loving touch of the Mary Jane. And this time, instead of having only scraps of ZA, we bought a whole gram to hopefully destroy my highly speculative ZA wall. I think it's real. Also, at this time, we were obsessed with freestyle rapping, so we decided the plan of action was to smoke up, eat candy, and rap battle to copyright-free beats while recording it so we could listen to our unreleased tracks in the morning. Since our parents were away for the night, we got the whole apartment to ourselves and planned on rolling 2 J's, both containing 0.5 G's. Since we were petrified at the thought of getting caught blazing, instead of being sensible and smoking the J's near a window and just blowing the smoke out, we put our jackets on and walked 500 feet away from the apartment to light up, just to be sure that there wouldn't even be a microfiber of evidence that we were smoking the devil's lettuce. As we were consuming the J, all I could hope for was that this time I wouldn't just get a limited free trial, but the actual full version. But alas, when we finished puffing the J, I again felt nothing, or at least that's what I thought, cause as we arrived back home, I finally realized that,
So you feeling it? Yeah, kinda.
sometimes the high hits you a couple minutes later, especially if you're going from outdoors to indoors as we did. And my highly accepted theory in the science community about this phenomenon is that through evolution, we have always considered indoors to be our safe zone and outdoors dangerous. Therefore, when you're outside, your brain doesn't allow the full faded and relaxed effect to take over, probably in anticipation of a roadman coming and chefing you up with the mandem. Okay, this one I'm not so confident in, and I have to come clean. I am in no shape or form associated with the science community. Yet. Anyway, now that we were high and in the living room, we started putting on some beats and freestyling, and to this day, I have yet to replicate the skill and precision of my flow that high. It's hard to explain, but nowadays, I can't rap for shit. I mean, I'll spit one line and be like, yo, I've been getting money making racks, cause you know I flip them packs. That's facts. Yeah, that's it. Basically, I run out of rhymes pretty fast, but that day, I did not. In fact, even when my brain had nothing to say, my mouth rapped it for me. I turned into a freestyling robot and became dead sure that I was gonna make it out by dropping a mixtape and becoming a famous rapper. Until we listened to the recording in the morning and realized, yo, flowing on the go, your girl she a hoe, making money dancing with a pole, my girl making dough while doing lines of blow, cause we in the penthouse, baby, living life, and that's for show.
Yeah, I'll try YouTube instead.
What's crazy though is that after that, I was never able to replicate the auto-rapping again, so my rap career never flowered, but who knows, maybe I'll try to convert this channel into lyric videos and shitposting, all while steadily alienating my audience and killing my channel. Or maybe I should just make a separate channel for that?
Sin, the all-new and improved nicotine device. You see, unlike before with vape companies who sold you a product that was near perfect, Sins are perfect. I mean, just look at Tucker Carlson, who interviewed Putin while going double upper decky, triple lower decky the entire time, and you didn't even notice.
Перестаньте виставлять на показ зин, передайте мне 2, чтобы я мог как минимум удвоить верхнюю палубу.
But besides that largely unconfirmed dialogue, I mean it when I say Sins are the future. future. The future of nicotine addiction. And unlike you Americans who might just be hearing about Zyn, me, a veteran snus-stuffing European, will tell you that this is merely the tip of the iceberg. Because when an American first tries Zyn, it usually plays out like this.
So I just put it under my gum?
Yeah, that's called going upper decky, bro.
Alright, if you say so. Okay, so what am I supposed to, what's this? This is the buzz? I'm a bit... I gotta sit down.
Yeah, bro, you just went to Upper Decky Capital. You're gonna be buzzing like a bee. But to me and every other Northern European, the Zyn seems like a product that should be sold at the baby aisle at Target. And no, that is in no way to brag. I am ashamed and quite literally making this video to warn you guys. Because all of this pouch stuff seems to be new, so you might not even know about the 5 levels of Zyn addiction that will be waiting for you once you get to level 1. It's called Zyn, bro. It's not even that bad. You have been introduced to Zyn, and hopefully you declined, but most likely you didn't, and now you're experiencing a buzz unlike you've never had before. Since it's your first Zyn, this will be what you'll set as a baseline for your addiction in the future, because as we know, the first high is always the craziest. But with Zyn, the guy who gave you it is probably already muttering something about, yeah bro, it's like the perfect nicotine delivery system. You know, Nick increases your testosterone and boosts your focus, and you know, Zyn isn't even that harmful for you, bro. And well, you just made your first mistake by actively opening the floodgates for these words to penetrate your ear hole and reach the cool part of your brain, which is now telling you, bro, it's not right-wing propaganda, Zyns are the future, and you know, it's not even that bad for you, man. Which, unfortunately, now, bro, you're moving on to level 2. I'm responsible. I'll take the free milligram one, please. Thank you.
Free MG? Shit, bro, my first time was a 35 MG, motherfucker.
So, you have your own Zyn, and feel inclined to make it an integral part of your personality, so whenever someone asks, hey yo, what's that? You will happily give the factory preset AI-generated voice line of, bro, you haven't heard? This is Zyn. It's like the future, bro. You wanna try one? And congratulations, you are now actively participating in the new Juul pandemic, and doing exactly what they want you to do. Not just get addicted, get everybody else too. Only problem is, you are slowly starting to realize that going double upper decky, triple lower decky isn't really doing it for you anymore. And there's only so much room in your gums, so now you move on to level 3.
I'll take the 6mg one, please, thank you.
Welcome to the pinnacle of Zyn, a true Zyn head, a maestro at the upper and lower decky. You must now continue to spread the word of Zyn, all about slowly realizing your gums are kind of coarse and that every day you go to sleep, your main motivation for the coming morning seems to be,
oh, can't wait to get that first Zyn lit, baby.
Which, once you make it here, you can confidently call yourself a Zyn head and find yourself popping them every chance you get. I mean, you wake up, Zyn, eat breakfast, Zyn, go to school or work, Zyn. Zinning has really taken over your life, man. God damn. But regardless, everybody cool is zinning, so it's okay. It's the future, right? Well, here's where you might do a bit more research into the topic and realize nicotine pouches have been around for decades, and that in places like Russia and Sweden, dudes have literally died from zinning, or well, Siberia Pablo Extra Stronging too hard. Cause you see, 6mg is actually like really light. I mean, in Estonia, the most commonly used product is 35mg. Yeah, almost 12 times stronger than the base model Zyn. So you either realize you're on a fucking slippery slope crafted and marketed by big tobacco and stop, or you keep going and find yourself on level 4.
You have Velo.
You might not specifically get Velo. You have Velo is just a marketing slogan I saw they're running in Poland. Anyway, now you're not really cool anymore. I mean, everybody is sinning, and now you're just kind of the guy who took it too far. But I guess you're kind of in my shoes, eh? You feel like you know more than the rest, that Zyn is for babies. On top of that, you still haven't dealt with your crippling nicotine addiction. If a free MG Zyn will get someone who has never done nicotine buzz like a bee, the average Velo will in fact make him vomit and feel sick for 30 minutes. Now for real, like back in the day, a big challenge some degenerate high schoolers in my country used to push to their friends was something like, put this 30mg pouch upper decky right now, and if you can manage for 5 minutes, I'll give you $10. And the outcome was usually the challengee puking and feeling sick in about 1. Unlike me though, I held a 35mg for 5. And I wasn't even challenged. I'm just born to be a sinner, I guess. Anyway, there is one more level, which most people probably won't get to because it's kind of getting ridiculous, but level 5, Siberia Max 100mg fucking annihilator. At this point, you might as well just move to Sweden, bro, because the people in the US, man, they just don't get you.
Ah, you're sinning, eh? Try this, it's a bit stronger. Alright, why not? Okay, this is...
Couldn't handle the man shit, eh?
Hey, you good, bro? I'll be on my way then. After realizing you literally can't exist without Zin, you might want to quit, but it's basically impossible. Well, not impossible, but usually the types of people who go over level 3 are the types of people who say stuff like,
You know, man, I'll quit when I want to.
which means never, or until their doctor says they are literally dying because of it. Unfortunately, the largely unknown health-related side effects have made sinning seem like it can't be that bad. Well, since I'm a certified sinner, I'll walk you through the average day of a veteran pouch addict. First things first, of course, you gotta wake up, and most civilized people, including me, wait at least till after eating breakfast to go upper decky. Although that doesn't mean there isn't a voice in your head every single day egging you on to sin as soon as your fucking mind becomes conscious. Shit, sometimes I even be seeing that bitch in my sleep, which makes it even more tempting cause now I don't even get a choice in what I think about in the morning. The sin literally won't let me be unaddicted even in my fucking dreams. Talk about free advertising, goddamn. Anyway, once you sin in the morning, your first lit is usually a non-productive one, so you kinda just scroll your phone and chill on the couch. I like to look at the first sin as my only entertainment pouch for the day, and the rest are just kinda there to help me focus and get my shit done. Also, after multiple upper deckies and lower deckies, your decky gets more and more coarse, and the sin less sinny, and at some point you get really tired and realize, oh shit, I gotta eat too, because you can't hold back your hunger with sin forever. Because eventually, your body will be like, I don't know if you've noticed, bro, but, we're kind of dying here. And so, you get a solid belly full, but not because you were hungry, more like you wanted to go double upper decky, but you knew it would just make you sick with an empty stomach. But sometimes, you see, you feel bad about your sin addiction, so you Google if you should stop and systematically ignore all the cons and just end up focusing on, it's not that bad, bro. For me, what always brings me back is the focusing and relaxation properties of the Zin. When I'm off the stuff, I feel like I need to rest more, and for example, when I broke my back, I didn't sin for like a month because I was just resting. Now that I'm back at full swing though, every time when my body says, yo bro, let's take a break, I'm like, break, yes of course. You mean double upper decky? No, what I mean, you wanna go crazy tonight. Double upper decky, triple lower decky, shall we? And so I pop it and continue on with whatever the fuck I'm doing. I guess what I'm trying to say is though that sins are bad, like really bad, but not so much because of the health implications. Well, they might be, we just don't know yet. Anyway, once you get into the habit of equating sinning with productivity like I have, it's very, very hard to quit. Because the grind never stops. But does that mean the sin never stops? No, I can't. Yeah, just don't ever do it, bro. You'll be so much better off. And in like 3 years, when everyone realizes that this is just Joule 2.0, you can proudly say, I didn't fall for it. 10,000 BC, a group of cavemen in the Oki Islands of Japan needed some warmth and wanted to start a fire when they discovered a funny looking green plant, and either out of curiosity or desperation took it and inadvertently created history's first ever hotbox. Yet this early grass was not that loud that people be smoking today, because as we know, over the years the za has been scientifically and artificially cultivated to be much more concentrated in the high it gives. So, although it is funny to think about a group of cavemen purposely starting a fire in a small shelter for the sole purpose of getting faded in a hoe, it is unlikely that it actually ever happened. Yet aside from this iffy recreational stint in Japan, hemp was first commonly used in the lands that are modern day Mongolia and China for more practical uses like eating it. Which, after saying that, you might be imagining something like this. Yo, what's up? How you doing? Had any fun with those new seeds I gave you?
Yo, nah, I actually came here to give them back. Last night I was looking at the moon and I swear that motherfucker was looking right back at me.
But alas, this probably wasn't the reality because the THC levels in this early cultivated Zaza were just really low, but soon the Chinese would discover that the holy plant's fibers were also great for making stuff too, like clothes, paper, and bowstrings. Which turns out hemp fibers were superior to the bamboo ones used by rivaling factions, allowing the Chinese to shoot their arrows much further. So basically, back in the day, if you were having a long distance bow battle and were losing, you might have screamed out, "We need to get closer!"
These motherfuckers have weed. Anyway, it wasn't long after when mofos realized that the loud wasn't only good for making stuff, it was also great for treating physical maladies. And after a couple thousand years, Emperor Shen Nung, known as the father of Chinese medicine, included the magic plant in his medical encyclopedia under the name Ma. Which, that sounds oddly similar to Za, doesn't it? I'm guessing every couple thousand years the first letter changes or something. But now, let's explore the question we're all asking. When exactly did mofos start ripping that shit to get faded? Well, one of the earliest counts is about 2,500 years ago, when researchers discovered 10 mini barbecues in a cemetery near modern-day Tajikistan that had residue of burnt cannabis with a much higher concentration of THC than normal, probably meaning it was selectively bred to get you, well, lit. Although this was one of the first counts of people purposely inhaling the broccoli to get high, it was most likely used as part of a ritual to invoke an altered state of mind so you could communicate with spirits. Which shit, dog, I wanna know what these dudes were smoking, cause I ain't never heard of no grass that gets you to the spirit realm. This might have low-key been the last kush Snoop Dogg smoked, cause once you get so high you start communicating with your dead gran, that's when you really might be like, okay, I think it's about time I stop smoking this shit. Since cannabis, for one reason or another, proved to be quite the useful plant, people started trading it around the world as soon as it was domesticated. Which the only people who didn't really fuck with the Zaza were Europeans, who preferred getting hammered instead. Which is low-key reflected in modern times too, especially in the northern countries where once you turn 18, you can drink as much poison as you want, but if you want to blaze, well, you might be looking at a little bit of jail time, my boy. But now, let's quickly go over the uses of cannabis throughout different cultures so we can move on to the modern age, starting with Hindus. They made something called bang, an edible cannabis paste that had medicinal properties but also got you high. This could be added to a variety of foods and drinks, which this bang was the preferred food of the Hindu god Shiva, making him in my eyes the god of edibles.
Disclaimer, that was a joke.
Islam. Here the za was called hashish and was introduced about 1,000 years ago, which hashish wasn't strictly forbidden in the Quran at first, so a lot of Muslims ate it for its medicinal and relaxation properties. But later, Egypt basically banned it, and also the Quran was revisited by many and reinterpreted to include hashish to be banned just like alcohol. The Vikings. These dudes basically used the za to make rope, sailcloth, and other things, but also for its medicinal properties, mostly to relieve pain, and to date, there's no hard evidence that they consumed it for its recreational use, but you know. Maybe they should have, because they were quite the horrendous savages and murderers, so it might have made them think a little bit about peace and love. But what about America, England, and the actual global world powers? How did they react to weed? Well, again, like the Chinese, Europeans and Americans at first prominently used the magic green plant in the 16th to 18th century for more practical things like making sailcloth and rope, which the plant itself grew much larger in the New World soil, and combined with the practicality of it, everything started being hemp-derived. Clothes, paper, well, basically anything that required fibers. But the question still remains, when did mofos start smoking that shit to get blasted on the regular? Cause although at some point you, your neighbor, your grandma, your boss, and even George Washington were out here growing weed, wasn't nobody out here rolling them up. Well, until the arrival of Mexicans. The loud version of hemp first arrived in Brazil in the early 1500s by way of enslaved Africans traveling with the Portuguese. And the native South Americans, who are already consuming some other psychoactive substances, quickly started blazing the Zaza too, and its use soon spread across South America and into Mexico, from which in the 1910s is when the loud first spread into the US, via Mexican immigrants escaping the effects of the Mexican Revolution. And almost immediately the good was viewed as a threat, and by 1931, 29 states had banned its use. Although it wasn't really the Zaza that the US didn't fall with, it was unfortunately mostly just racism against Mexican Americans and black citizens of the South, which both these groups were enjoyers of the za to some regard, so it became a scapegoat for racial bias in the US, and they blamed it for everything from petty crimes all the way to murder. And in 1937, the US completely banned all non-medical use of weed, which all this kind of explains why the mostly peaceful plant has been thrown in the same Schedule 1 category with full-on life-destroying substances like heroin and cocaine. But thankfully, a couple decades later came the hippie movement of the 1960s to 1970s. This is what likely sparked the comeback for weed, cause unlike before, when the Zaza was mostly smoked by Mexican immigrants and black citizens who the US was massively racist against, the hippie movement had middle-class white American youth start blazing too. Which it was all about love, peace, spirituality, non-violence, and of course, every hippie's favorite, recreational drug use. Although most hippies were all about peace and love, that was quite easy to say when most of them were literally privileged enough to drop out of college, run off with Cassandra in a rainbow van, go on copious amounts of mindset-altering trips, mostly powered by LSD, and then return 10 years later to their parents and have them say,
It's okay, son. I was young and stupid once too.
Anyway, although the grass was still federally illegal, this didn't really do much cause in 1976, 1 in 8 Americans over the age of 12 admitted to smoking it in the past 30 days. Hippies though were especially interested in cannabis, so much so they went on something called the Hippie Trail, which was basically an excursion by the youths of the world to go over to the Middle East and India, all while riding in magic buses and discovering new ways to get absolutely blasted, such as smoking the concentrated Zaza resin known as hash. But acquiring the Zaza would soon get much harder, because you see, most of it came from Mexico, so in 1969 the US started patrolling the border, and in 1975 they got even more aggressive and started spraying herbicide on Mexican wheat plants. And so good old supply and demand made grass prices skyrocket, which a lot of people started then growing the plant themselves in mini greenhouses, closets, bathtubs, storage units, basements, wherever they could. But then in 1982, Mr. Smarty Pants Ronald Reagan took it even a step further by encouraging the streamlined arrest of anyone in possession of an illegal substance, which was really dumb because most of the focus was on pot, all while crack, meth, and heroin were all still being transported and consumed on a regular basis. Even worse, this enforcement seemed to be racially motivated because despite plenty of traffickers and consumers being white, the majority of arrests were Latino and black youths, all while this bizarre over-focus on cannabis allowed the growing opioid epidemic to go unchecked. But thankfully, the US is slowly learning from their mistakes, where today 24 states have legalized the recreational use of marijuana. On top of that, the increased level of research on it has also found multiple medical use cases and can be prescribed to you by special doctors if seen fit. And although the Zaza is still federally illegal and a Schedule 1 drug, the overall perception of it has changed for the better, including in December 2022 when President Biden signed a bill to make it easier for researchers to obtain plants for their studies, which will hopefully accelerate the learning of positive and negative side effects of consuming the ZA even further. But all that aside, the overall vibe towards the loud has gotten a lot more accepting, and these days more and more people view the smoking of the grass not as you being a junkie, but the same way as having a couple beers with the homies on a Friday night and watching some WWE. I think a lot of you guys can relate when I say I f***ing hate nicotine. No, I mean I love it, but I actually really hate it. And if you watch my Types of Nicotine Addicts video, you know that I consider myself a seasonal addict, so pretty much I might be nick-free for a whole 3 months or something, but then fall back into the trap like, life is so stressful right now, I swear, I got so many problems and worries, I wish I could just somehow relieve some of this stress. Preferably in blueberry flavor. And then I have to start fighting my own damn brain because it just starts telling me reasons why I deserve that blueberry stick. You haven't vaped for months. Just buy one, come on. You had a rough day. You deserve it. You have a long day ahead of you. It would be much easier with a little bit of cancerous chemicals.
Like, no. F*** you, brain. I shall not fall under your illusions again.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. But fool me. Well, shit. And I don't even know why. Like, whenever I have something I need to do that I don't really feel like doing at the time, my brain automatically gives me the signal to go buy some Nick. Like, why? It doesn't actually make the task easier. Shit, all it actually does is make it harder, cause you get all lightheaded and dizzy. Every time I get a week or more off the stuff, I feel great and am as productive as ever, but for some reason, my mind still believes if I just had some nicotine, I would be even more productive. It's kinda the same with grass though, cause I always feel like I'm getting shit done when I'm high, but in reality, I'm working at like 30% capacity, but it just feels like I'm working at 200, cause the ZA makes everything feel so significant, even just doing a small amount of work feels like you just finished studying for them Harvard entrance exams, fool. Anyway, back to nicotine and how I got accidentally addicted to it again. So basically what had happened was I was just doing what I normally do, you know, making videos and shit, when suddenly I was invited to a barbecue. And you know, me being the CBD bro I am, I ain't really wanna go cause I had shit to do. Plus, you know, everybody was drinking there and I was just trying to smoke that grass. But reluctantly, I accepted, and not to my surprise, everybody there was consuming that nic one way or the other. And well, long story short, I cracked and took a nicotine pouch from one of the people there. Well, by the end I took like 7 or 8, but that doesn't matter. And my dumbass thought, well okay, just one day. But then the next day I went out with some friends and by the gods, 2 of them were also carrying nicotine pouches, so obviously I did some more. And then the same thing happened the day after that, and by the end of it all, I just went ahead and bought a fucking Elf bar. Cause I guess all it takes to go from months clean to Elf bar in your pocket sucking on a colorful stick when stressed unable to control your urges hobgoblin is 2 days of stuffing your gums with nicotine pouches. Thankfully, I didn't let myself go too far, cause after that Elf bar, I didn't buy any more, but instead placed myself in specific social situations where I was able to receive free nicotine pouches from others. And that's what I'm on at the time of this video as well. So basically, I don't have my own vape or whatnot, but every time I go somewhere where someone does, you better believe I'm asking for a quick hit. But don't worry, I try not to be too much of a goblin, so usually I cash app like $2 to the dude I'm borrowing the vape from. It's kinda hard though trying to explain to people like, yeah, I don't vape. Only when someone else has a vape, then I vape quite a bit. But hey, that's what's helped me quit nicotine like 5 times by now, although I always end up coming back to it after a couple months. Nonetheless, it helps because in order to get my nicotine kick, I have to go out and socialize, which can be quite hard if you also want to be faded and watch Star Wars Fury at home. So a lot of times, I just don't go and therefore don't vape. It's only when my nicotine addiction outweighs my desire to be high at home when I go out and vape. And because I'd rather watch Disney Plus and munch on some Doritos than just sit somewhere and suck on a nicotine stick, I've been able to control my nicotine addiction quite well, I think. The 5 levels of being high. Now, I bet you've seen a couple videos on this topic, maybe even mine, but since almost a year has passed and my knowledge and understanding of the magic green plant has grown tremendously, I thought it's about time to make the ultimate, definitive, most precise levels of high tier list on planet Earth. And to make it even more fun, for every level, I'ma be getting more high to give an accurate representation of what the level feels and sounds like. So let's get it started with Level 1. Microdosed. This is the level where you don't really feel anything per se, but you can tell something is different. You have a slight mood boost and your body might feel a bit more elevated. So like if your legs were sore, they're probably even more sore now, but if you're lying on your bed, well, its comfortability is probably up about by 10 to 15%. Nothing crazy, but it is noticeable. This, however, isn't enough to give you the giggles. So that Amy Schumer comedy special will still leave you wondering if my vagina is actually comedy or just poorly done slapstick humor. And since I'm currently at this level, I can tell you it also has no negative side effects, so I can still do everything without worrying if I'm too high. Anyway, let's move on to the first exciting level, and that is Level 2. I'm feeling it. So you're feeling it, eh? Well, me too. This is the level where that Amy Schumer special might actually forcefully steal a giggle or two from you, but not because it's actually funny, it's more like you're laughing at her rather than with her. Anyway, since you're now feeling it, you also might be feeling that movie a bit more, or that video game. Shit, you might be feeling your own jokes a bit more. Got you laughing at your own thoughts, fool. This is also the optimal high if you still got stuff to do. Well, to be honest, if you got stuff to do, probably better to not be high, but at this level, it's still definitely doable, just a bit more difficult. Another way to look at it is, this is the high the workers at Subway are usually on, although I have seen mofos way beyond this there too, but for the most part, this is optimal cause the loud hasn't got you moving slow-mo quite yet. As for me, I'm still able to read this script and pronounce my words just fine, so you probably can't even tell I'm high right now. But now it's time to get to the first level where a mofo can feel too high if he's not experienced. Level 3. Yeah, I'm pretty high. So here we are, pretty high. This is the point where, at least for me, doing anything besides leisurely activities is hard. Not impossible, nor undoable, but hard. If we take that Amy Schumer comedy special for reference again, as for some reason I like doing, it might just maybe have become funny, but you also realize you just high, so you turn it off and watch something else. Also, this is the first level where some thoughts might have become uncontrollable in the senses you just can't help but dive deeper into the fact that the bomb dropped on Hiroshima was almost 1600 times less powerful than the Tsar bomb created and detonated by the Soviets in 1961 as a show of power to the US. But then you find out there's something called an antimatter bomb which could be even more destructive, but it's only a theory, but then maybe the US is developing it in Area 51 or something.
Yeah, I think you get the point.
But there is one sensation that is more powerful than your random thoughts, and that of course is the munchies. Coupled with the fact you're probably rocking some dry mouth right now, this in my opinion is the best level to be at if you're trying to stuff your face with enough trans fats to feed 50 hungry children. But you know, you already ate it also. Anyway, moving on to level 4. Faded beyond belief. This is the point where if you're not in a safe space, you kinda screwed. Well, not always, but at this level, it's become almost impossible to practice rational thinking. I mean, if you were diving deeper into that nuclear bomb stuff at the previous level, then this is a point where you might start actually believing you are Oppenheimer himself. This stage is really not the best if you're looking to focus on a movie or video game or really anything because, well, your attention span is at the mercy of the za, and to actually enjoy this high, you just gotta go with the flow. As for me, it's getting pretty hard to read the script. If I look at the words for long enough, they kinda look like some ancient Chinese hieroglyphs. But anyway, if you're an actual lunatic, maniac, psychopath, Zaza destroyer, and considering hitting that gravity one more time, then be prepared for level 5. Shadow Realm. I told you, bro, you gotta be a maniac to get to this level because the plane of existence you on now is so different from being non-high, you probably feeling and looking like a goddamn alien. I mean, bro, your eyes are so red and you feel so disconnected from your body that if you look in the mirror, you'll probably think, bro, is that really me? I'm so fucked up. Wait. Ah, shit, I'm in the Shadow Realm again, aren't I? And now that you realize you're in the Shadow Realm, you either stop the trip by going to sleep or level unknown, exploring the Shadow Realm. This level doesn't require smoking more. All it really requires you to do is just go outside and explore the world that in many ways has become the upside down from Stranger Things. Cause at this level, rational thinking has been completely thrown out the window and your brain has reverted to factory settings as of when you were just born. So if you see a streetlight flickering, for example, if you were normal, you just think, they really should fix that. Compared to now, oh shit, bro, this is totally one of those slasher scenes where once I walk over the streetlight, he's gonna shift me up, isn't he? Nah, man, fuck this, I'm out of here. At least, I don't know, that's how it feels to me when I achieve the pinnacle of high and am wandering the world outside.